back into number 5, our consent agenda. Would someone like to move the consent agenda as a by Director Mack, seconded by Director Birch Jones?
So I wanted to pull 5.2.1, please.
5.2.1, letter from the city of Grinnell. Move that along to
11.8.
11.8. You. Okay, with that item pulled, can we move along the rest of the consent agenda? All in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Now, any business arising from the minutes? Being none, moving along to 7.1. And this is recommendations from the Policy and Development Committee, and this is a request for decision to rescind the staff expense and travel policy. Hello.
Okay, my name is Allison Twist, Senior Policy Analyst at the Squamish-Lillooet Regional District. The purpose of this report is to rescind the board staff expense travel policy. At the January 12, 2026, the Policy Development and Review Committee meeting recommended that it be recommended to this board that board policy number 5.5, staff expense travel, be rescinded. The board staff policy was last amended May 15th, 2006. If rescinded as recommended by the Policy Development and Review Committee, the current policy will subsequently be replaced by a new administrative travel reimbursement policy, which would automatically align staff travel reimbursement rates with those set by the Canada Revenue Agency and that are comparable to and modeled after other regional district governments. Anticipated changes to related financial costs are expected to be insignificant, and board oversight will remain through the budget planning and approval cycle. Through the process of the board rescinding the current staff travel expense policy and the administration then setting the new travel reimbursement policy, allowable reimbursement rates will also be aligned with those of this regional board. Staff are available for questions if you have any.
Okay. Any questions? But
Just on the timing of the rollout, and I didn't see that, would that sort of immediate, we will rescind this and I understand what we're doing, I approve of it. Does that go into effect immediately after this meeting?
Yes, it will. With the
Brilliant.
rescindment, the administrative policy will immediately be estimated.
Thank you.
all right. No other questions? Would someone like to make the motion? Director Birch Jones, second by Director Jean. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, recommendations from the EAD committee from January 14th. Direction request regarding the preliminary 2026 draft EAD budget review. Are there questions regarding the okay, so we'll just wait for staff to come. That's great. Yeah, I know, we're early.
Disorienting for everyone.
Yeah.
The most of that
Great.
history of local government.
Hello,
Oh,
we're ready for you. We have a question. I'm gonna go to Director Hopful for her first question. And then Vivian.
Okay, my first question is on page 109, under line 4,000, it's got 119% increase.
Any more details than that?
Okay, well, page 109 of the revenue,
Okay, thank you.
no, 4,000 for 40,000, that line requisition, it's up 69 to 948, so it's up about, I don't know, 37,000.
Hold on, Lori,
Where are you?
just let us,
Page 109?
well, yeah, but which budget? Exhibit 1500, elections, UBCM?
Yeah, just that very first one,
Okay,
that first revenue.
Page one.
so that's the problem.
109 for you? Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
For clarification, it's the elections UBCM budget line,
Yes,
which is 1,500. And it has a significant increase because there's an election year.
right, right. So what I'm asking is, so much is allocated to the election for the four areas. And is it safe to say that if they all get in by acclamation, it goes back into this same budget? And if it's, so what if it's only, if two of them get in by acclamation, the other two don't, is it basically half, or is there a lot of work to do? Or is it all the same? Like, how does that work, being that there's four elections that go from, Porter Cove to Braylorn?
Yeah, all good questions. All I'll say is the funding will always stay within the service. And if it's not spent, it'll go to the reserve, which will be then pulled for the next election.
Okay.
But I'll pass it over to Angela Belsham, who's actually the election officer.
Thank you, Angela Belsham, Director of Legislative and Corporate Services. So we prepare, starting now, for four. Even if there are acclamations that occur, we're not aware of that until really September. So we have to do all of the staff work associated with preparing for all four, including supporting and working with our member municipalities. So hence the reason why you're seeing that increase for 2026.
Did they all got in by acclamation?
In 2022, all four areas
All
were.
four
by
areas.
acclamation.
So then that's why we had the surplus there, correct?
There's still work that needs to be done, even because you don't know that there's gonna be an acclamation until September
Right.
20, whatever the writ drop.
Whatever
date
that
is.
day is, so.
So our staff are still working, so there is still money
Right.
being used
For
for
sure,
that
for sure.
reserve.
Okay,
But yeah, it would carry forward,
it would carry forward, it'd go back into that and then just,
but there could also be by-elections midterm.
oh, for sure, I hadn't
And
even
so
thought
that
of the
money needs to
by-elections,
stay
right?
there. Yeah.
Okay. All right, perfect, thanks.
Any other questions? Director Bridge Jones, go ahead.
Thank you, and we're going, no, we're not. At the EAD meeting, we talked about this significant jump in all the electoral areas, the building inspections, well, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 services, but it's an increase of $30.19, right? When we're talking about all electoral areas. And staff, we're gonna do some more work on looking at that building inspection budget. Is that happening?
Yeah, we're reviewing all of
You're looking
those,
at that.
services, and when it comes to the AD and February.
We'll talk
there should
about
be
it
some
again.
Adjustments.
And that's true maybe of some of the other ones that we talked about at the EAD. We'll see them again in February. In that case, page one, no, I won't give a page number. We'll jump to the civic addressing budget. Will I be looking to put money into that one? The civic addressing? I'm still waiting for a report. There's a deficit in area B. Will I be expecting a request from staff on that one? Is the project considered finished?
Bit confused, I'm not sure. Yeah,
Civic addressing.
Is that the Community Works Fund project that you're
Yes.
referencing? So it's showing a carry forward balance of $1,476. That was the remaining funding from the project that was conducted in 2025.
Excellent.
If those funds are no longer required, then they could be reallocated back to the Area B Community Works Funds Reserve. But there was no deficit, that's the carry forward revenue
Okay.
balance.
Excellent, and thank you. Okay. We have another one, but it's farther down the line, so I'll wait.
Okay.
A bit bigger picture question. I've asked this in the past couple times. I'm wondering if the area directors discussed sort of emergency response and so on. I keep going back to some of the discussions we had about, you know, things we would like to have done in addition or request for additional things, and understand we submit to the project and we maybe get some of that money back, but we also ended up with, you know, having to deal with burnout and not getting a lot of our work planned done because people are taking off things because we didn't have the budget to backfill and keep works ongoing. So and again, maybe this is a bigger discussion for another day, but I just want to raise it again, like, did we talk about building in a fund to deal with some of those things we saw? Like, as bad as Gun Lake was, in some ways we got lucky. There's so much force and there's so much, you know, are we building in enough, do we think, especially for the electoral areas, to meet people's expectations of what an emergency response will be?
Mark?
Yeah. Yeah, I would like to have further discussion about this. I know from the, and Mark Phillips, Director of Practice Services. But I know from the 2023 event, there were a lot of challenges, and we luckily had support from electoral area director to manage the number of needs of the community, and also the province in terms of getting EAFs approved for the number of the province we're leading. I would love to have more kind of thorough conversations about the types of things that you're looking about, the contingency you're having. I don't really have a very good answer for you right now. But we need to better understand the question and kind of what you're looking for.
So when would the opportunity for that sort of your hopes and dreams discussion happen prior to the budget, so that our budget is accurately reflective of what you need within your department? Like when I mean, sort of you coming back with a staff report to say we need a bigger budget, when would you like that conversation?
I know we are actively having budget conversations with our team and with our CAO right now. And I think that's something that we could take away for future discussion. Maybe we could bring that back to the CAO and about to offer another opportunity.
I think one of the focuses of the senior leadership team this year is improving the budget process when it comes to timing and participating earlier on, with a focus on a 5-year plan. So thinking, do we need more capacity of staff in 3 years from now? That's already earmarked on a 5-year plan. So that we have these forward-thinking discussions, and you see that in the budget. And right now, I feel like this budget is a reflection of the needs that director. We can always, you can always tax for more, but we feel like this is a good balance of taxation and the needs of the community as Director Phillips sees it.
Yeah. Any other questions? I don't see any other questions. Director Birchstones, did you have another question?
I think I can save them for the EAD. I'm good with this here
Okay.
today. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Any final thoughts from staff on anything that's keeping you up at night, anything that you want to earmark for purposes of discussion? No, okay.
Okay.
I'm happy with the electoral area committee recommendations of January 14th, 2026, all of them.
Can we move them all together as a block?
Yeah, if you want to.
All of them. as
One at a
block.
time.
Yeah, noting that final resolution was that staff request from Ministry of Transportation and Transit an updated cost estimate for repaving of the section of Lillooet Pioneer Road that was disturbed as part of the Braemar and Sewer project. I'm calling that one specifically for your attention because it's not tied to the 2026 budgets.
Got it. Okay. Everyone comfortable with the motion that we're moving them all together as a block? Moved by Director Birchstone, seconded by Director Mack. Comments?
Did we know how many dads there
I can count
35.
Okay. With no further ado. We'll call the question. All in favor? Is there anybody opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
It reflects a lot of work on your part. Thank you.
I really, actually, I do want to say that I really appreciated the current process of bringing these forward to the EAD meeting so that that discussion is held by the 4 directors. Whereas in previous years, they were held privately between Director of Finance and each area director, which is also an amazing process, but this allows more transparency so that everyone around this table can go back and watch those videos and watch that discussion. But also members of our community can understand where those budget cost centers are coming from and how that thought process unfolds. So thank you. There is certainly still interest from community groups such as Britannia Beach and Furry Creek communities that wish to have better insight into the cost centers that affect them directly. And so we continue to refine our process, and I appreciate your time. This is not an easy project. Thank you. And
Director Demare has his hand up.
oh, Director Demare.
Yeah, thank you. When I first looked at and I made this comment at the EAD meeting, when I first looked at the process, I thought, about this. After reviewing everything prior to the meeting, it gives you really good insights into the other electoral areas, because you're digging in deeper into each one of them, and I like the process moving it forward like that. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And I've already called the question, so we're all in favor. And we are 8 minutes to lunch. 7.2. We get through that. 7.2.2.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Oh,
let's do
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not controversial in any way.
I disagree. Director Phillips.
Afternoon, or good morning still, I guess.
Yeah.
Mark Phillips, Director of Connected Services. This report was brought to the EAD, and it's regarding the SLRD providing funding to the Fraser Basin Council in support of maintaining the Lillooet roundtable. And so the background, essentially the province used to fund this, unfortunately is not being funded anymore. It includes partners from all across the region, First Nations, industry, and extremely valuable in terms of connections and building that collaborative network across the northern region.
And this allows our staff to still have the capacity to participate and get meaningful outcomes from it.
Exactly.
Thank you. Would you like to make that motion?
Yes, and this means our staff can be there and participate, and they aren't burdened with the sort of huge logistical challenge of pulling this all together. And I have to say, Fraser Basin does an outstanding job of organizing this for us, and they've already got the website, the network, the background, all of the minutes from our previous meetings. So this will be fairly seamless, and Alex is pleased that we're working on this. I really appreciate staff doing this footwork, and I'll refrain from giving a speech on how valuable the whole thing is.
I just did.
Well, I did give speeches at UBCM to the ministers, but I didn't seem to move in any direction. So we're gonna pay for it with Northern Pilt, and it's a very good use of money. And there may be some contributions from other places that would be a bonus, but we can cover it right here, right now. Funding up to $9,200 be allocated from electoral area B, Northern BC Hydro payment in lieu of taxes funds to the Fraser Basin Council towards the costs associated with the Lillooet area wildfire roundtable meetings in 2026.
Thank you. I have moved and seconded. I do have a comment from Director Demare, and then I'm gonna go to Director Hoppel.
Yeah, I've got a few. This initiative is really, really good. The participation level at those meetings was phenomenal by so many different groups. And I'm just wondering if this is going to be a planned event every year for, the 2 days that it's done, that we need to look at maybe doing a tax requisition within the emergency planning budget. And we could have, whether it's just area A or B or Lillooet as part of that, tax service. But is there a chance to have something in the southern SLRD that is comparable to what we're doing? Because it's awesome. Because it really brings all the parties together, including the First Nations. And also, I'd like to see the 2 new fire societies in the SLRD Area A be incorporated into the sessions. We've got Gold Bridge Fire and the Todd and Gun Creek area fire societies that are new, that didn't get a chance to participate in these in previous years. Thank you.
Thank you. And I saw Director Phillips nodding his head and writing notes, so I think that's been captured. Director Hopful, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that the District of Lillooet will be helping out with the financial implications of this as well, so. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Don't see any. I will call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. I will call a recess for lunch. Please be back in your seats and ready to make materials available to our speech staff. 1. All right, so we'll call this meeting back to order, and we've got 9.2, an information report regarding Catalina Creek debris flow mitigation project status update.
Thank you very much, Chair and Board. My name is Philippa Campbell. I'm the Project and Program Coordinator in Strategic Services for this project. I'm here with my colleagues in support of this report. And we also have Mike Strain joining us virtually. Mike Strain is going to do the presentation. So Chair, if you'd like to proceed. Yeah, please do. And we're just getting the slides up now. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Philippa. Hello, everyone. Here again, Mike Strain, Project Director with CapEx Projects and Project Manager for the Catalina Creek Flow Mitigation Services Project. With the project having recently commenced construction and clearing and grubbing and permitting now largely complete, we have a brief presentation for the board to review the project status and next steps. Next slide, please. The presentation will include a brief overview and reminder of the location of the project and the project objective, an update on the project budget and funding, review of where we are in the project timeline and schedule, a look at the progress through a few site photos, and review of project risks and next steps. Next slide, please. So here again is the project site, which is located at Catalina Creek, within and adjacent to the community of Lillooet Lake Estates in Lillooet Nation territory and approximately 7.7 kilometers from Highway 99. The project is to design, construct, and establish operation and maintenance of a debris flow mitigation structure capable of managing a 1,000-year event, which is approximately 100,000 cubic meter debris flow slide. We continue to work with Lillooet Nation as rights holders of the land and are grateful for their ongoing contribution and collaboration on this project. Next slide, please. So here we see the current approved budget of 11.697 million and the current available funds up to 11.697 million. The current available funds are coming from ICIP, CEPF, and the loan authorization. Just a little note, while there have been a few items encountered to date that have turned out to be more costly than estimated, they are well within the allocated contingency, and the current forecasted overall project costs continue to be within the current approved project budget. Next slide, please. So here's the timeline of events on the project in relation to design, permitting, and construction. This shows the past events and highlights where we are currently, which is in the construction phase, and where we are going, which is anticipated completion by the end of this year. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, we're currently in the construction phase. We're at the tail end of the clearing, grubbing, and burning, and the contractor has just started excavation of the channel and construction of the berms. All owner permits are in place and the contractor permits are essentially all in place, with the exception of the significant works permit, which is in progress and expected in the coming weeks. Over the past quarter, staff and the project team have been working with the contractor to obtain all permits and meet all the requirements of BC Hydro, Ministry of Forests, and other agencies. We've been working with Lillooet Nation to establish full-time environmental and archaeological monitoring services, working with the engineers, contractors, and the Ministry of Forests to finalize plans for the temporary and permanent bridge designs, and working with the community at Lillooet Lake Estates to address issues as they arise through the construction period. The Ministry of Forests have now completed the tender period for the permanent bridge and are currently evaluating tenders for installation of the bridge at some point within the April 1st to July 1st timeframe. Progress appears generally to be on track for completion by the end of 2026, and we're continuing to monitor that as we move forward. Next slide, please. So here we see an aerial view of the project with components of the project and Lillooet Lake Estates parcel overlaid onto the image. The 6.5K fill site is shown in red on the left or the west side, the main channel in green, the training berms in blue, and the Forest Service Road bridge in orange. With clearing and grubbing largely complete, the contractor has begun to progress the main channel excavation and will work from the bottom up, with completion of the works below the FSR bridge being the priority. This work includes channel excavation, berm construction, water main removal and replacement, and road realignment. It is anticipated that the contractor will haul to the 6.5K fill site within the next few months, once the lakeside berms and FSR berms have been completed. The next priority will then be to establish a temporary detour route and install a temporary bridge to bypass the existing bridge at Cataline Creek. Establishing the temporary bypass will allow the Ministry of Forests to come in and replace the existing bridge in that April 1st to July 1st window, and it'll allow for channel excavation and berm construction to carry on above the bridge, with the goal of minimizing impacts to users of the Inchech-CH FSR. Further details with respect to construction schedule and potential impacts will be made available on the project webpage as they are available. Next slide, please. Here's a few photos to show some of the progress made so far. The images shown here are from November, showing the clearing in the upper gate 6 area in LLE, with the image on the left taken from above, while the image to the right is taken from the ground. Next slide. So the image shown here on the left is the 6.5K fill site ready to receive fill. The image on the right is from the Forest Service Road looking down towards the lake, showing some clearing and burning in progress. Next slide. Here on the left, showing structure removal in progress below the Forest Service Road. And the image on the right is taken from the upper reaches of Lillooet Lake Estates looking down towards the lake. Next slide, please. Here's an aerial photo taken a little over a week ago, just before channel excavation started. It shows the extent of the debris flow mitigation project within the LLE parcel and above on public land. It's a little hard to make out the details, but you can see that the tree clearing is largely complete. And it's a good representation of the project footprint there. Next slide, please. So we're continuing to manage the project risks, and our top ones are upward pressure on costs, unknown site conditions. As mentioned earlier, we've encountered some items that have turned out to be more than estimated, but these are within the allocated contingency and are being managed to reduce the impact on cost. We expect there will be further items as we complete the construction that put pressure on costs, and are continuing to keep a lookout for these so that we can be proactive in mitigating the potential impacts. With regards to schedule delays, coordination with key partners, construction safety related risks, we have had a few shutdowns of the site to date due to weather, holidays, and other things such as safety. However, these have not resulted in an impact to our overall target completion date. We're continuing to work with the general contractor to identify any schedule concerns early and ensure appropriate mitigations are implemented. At the previous project status update to the board in September, there was a concern related to the BCGEU strike, which has since ended with no anticipated impacts to overall planned completion of construction. Next slide, please. So the next steps for the construction include excavations and berms in the lower section, Gate 5 road realignment, temporary bridge and detour installation of the Ministry of Forest permanent bridge, and subsequent removal of the temporary bridge and detour. Upper channel excavation and berm construction, completion of fill sites within LLE and the FSR, environmental restoration, and substantial completion and closeout of the construction phase. Aside from project status updates, we plan to return to the SLRD board for decisions related to the project as required moving forward. I think that's it. Next slide. Are there any questions?
Go ahead.
Just out of curiosity, is there a date after which weather sort of ceases to be a risk? Like after March, we're done enough of the construction that we don't have to worry about weather impacts so much, or? Well, we have various weather risks on the project. You know, there's levels of high water level for Lillooet Lake. There's levels of high creek flows, low creek flows that have sort of different timings. So I think weather's always a bit of a factor, but maybe you're asking more about the shutdown due to heavy rainfall and things like that. Yeah, I sort of, you know, I see there's some rehabilitation, environmental restoration work and so on later on, but sort of the main channel piece, are we sort of safe in terms of that work as of spring or summer or something, or? Yeah, you typically environmental restoration, you want to do that in the fall. And then if you don't get to it in the fall, it may become something that needs to be done in the spring, for sure.
The engineers on site have criteria for the amount of rain and things like that, where you have to shut down and can't work near the channel or in the channel, and then there's different increments where you have to shut down. And I foresee that continuing until the whole channel is kind of dug up.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
I have one. It's a good report. It's good to see the progress on the project. Thank you. My question's kind of outside of your authority, but I have to ask. I have a Forest Service road on the Duffy that really needs a bridge. I wonder what they're doing with the one they're taking out. And because they're different jurisdictions, so I just wonder about a contact that I could put the Cascades people in contact with as a suggestion. Why not?
Thank you. I don't think there's an answer for that right now.
I don't know if it's the same jurisdiction.
It's not.
No, okay.
Because I'm in Cascades Forest Service District out of Merritt. So they wouldn't know this was happening in the district that you're working in, but I have to ask it because we need a bridge replacement in that area, and it wouldn't do any harm to just put them in contact with each other. I'd be happy to do that. So I just need a contact from your Ministry of Forests on the FSR. If that's not too much trouble.
Maybe, let's take that offline.
Sure.
Okay,
Can't let the opportunity go.
any other questions about this project? I don't see any. Okay. Would we like a
Right.
motion? Or anything further that you'd like?
I'll make them.
Moved by Director Mack, seconded by Director Birch Jones. Comments? Thank you for being with us here today, Mr. Strain. We appreciate your ongoing work. And we look forward to the next update. All
Thank you
right,
very much.
all in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. And almost right on time. Look at that. We have Fire Services the Resiliency Project update coming at us live and in color. Hello, be comfortable.
Just
We're a little bit ahead of schedule.
For a second.
Oh, good. This is now 9.3.
Thank you.
These were timed presentations because we've got our consultants here with us in Pemberton. Welcome. Thank you. Floor is yours.
Great. Thank you, Chair. I'll just quickly say that this presentation is going to be provided by Bill Stoner, our SLRD Fire Services Manager, and Tim Play, who is the contract lead for this project. And I will just quickly say that I am very thankful for that we're providing this presentation, and thankful for the expertise and leadership of these two gentlemen. And I'm looking forward to this presentation and the discussion.
I'll kick it off, just go over what we are hoping to achieve today, and then I'll turn it over to Tim for all the details. Mr. Play. So today we're looking to accomplish two things. One is just to bring the board up to speed about what we've done on the project up to this date. And the other thing is to make sure that we're all heading in the same direction going ahead. To that end, we're really looking to accomplish three things. The first thing that we want to do is work with the society fire departments in the SLRD, specifically Braylorn, Gun Lake, Pemberton Meadows, and Birkin, to work out levels of service for their delivery. And this is a provincial requirement that every fire department has to have a alleged level of service okayed by the authority having jurisdiction, which is us. The second thing we want to do is we want to establish service agreements with each of these fire departments. We don't have one yet. A service agreement will allow us to even more clearly indicate roles and responsibilities for each group, and also provides liability protection for each group as well. The last thing that we want to look at is we want to continue to investigate a wildland operations level of service. And so what that is, if there was a society department within the SLRD that was not able to provide structural protection because they couldn't meet the minimum training standards, we feel that there is still an opportunity for them to provide service to their communities by doing wildland response within their fire protection area. There's a lot to unpack there. Unfortunately, we have Mr. Ply here to dig into those details with us. But on an overview, what we're looking at to accomplish today is get board approval to go ahead, make policy, create contracts with the local service departments that we will bring back to you for approval, and to continue to investigate the wildland fire level service. That's where we are as an overview, and if it pleases the board, we'll pass it over to Mr. Pye.
Madam Chair, board. Excellent overview. Thanks, Bill. And the staff report is really clear, I think, on where we hope to go. And I believe the slide deck was in your agenda package. So if you're okay, we'll walk through and I'll speak to it and give us some context. So the current scope of this project includes looking at these four service areas that Mr. Stoner just mentioned. And you'll know they're all different, right? They're all rural, and but they're all different communities, and because of that, there are different versions of fire departments. Next slide, please. This slide talks about what we observed to be missing. What it doesn't say is what we observed to be in place, and I just want to say really briefly that what we've observed is a board that is committed to providing services in rural communities and wanting to get that within compliance of regulation and to be sustainable and for these small communities and small tax bases. And we engage with regional district staff who likewise are seeking sustainability and clarity and compliance with regulation and risk mitigation. Probably should have been a slide on all the good things that we found. We also found in each of those 4 communities, people that are, oh my goodness, just engaged in serving communities, right? And wanting to serve and protect their communities and doing it in different ways. So great people out in the communities, which you will already know. But we find these gaps, right? And as Mr. Stoner suggested, there's a path forward to, I think, a pretty clear path forward for meeting the needs of everybody. So just want to describe that to you. So there are no service agreements currently between the regional district and the service providers. There's not a policy, there's not a definition of which services the regional district intends to be provided and the levels of each service. And that's best done in a policy. It can be done in a bylaw as well, but our advice is to put that in policy so that it can be massaged from time to time. There's not a delegation of local government authority, and we'll speak to each one of these in more detail. And we saw varying levels of trust, and we'll speak to that as well. Next slide, please. Just want to walk through these 4 slides really quickly to show you, these are the service area maps that are attached within the bylaws that enable that set in place service areas. So you have 4 fire protection service areas, 1 for each of these communities that we're looking at. And this is how they are. They're all linear and they all, what I'd like you to notice in these is that they are defined, right? They're privately owned properties that are, it seems, mostly occupied with structures. So they're not far reaching, they're not height of land to height of land. They are the communities. And if we can just walk through the next 3 slides as well, just have a quick look at how these things are configured, right? So there's Birkin, of course. And Gun Lake, just waterfront properties, right, around the lake. And Braylorn, much older community. Interesting to see all those different parcels. I gotta think that's attached to the history of mining, but the service area itself is pretty defined, right? And so this is what we're talking about providing services, not talking about out in the wildland, top of mountains and things. It's within the communities, very defined service areas. Next slide, please. So getting back to those 4 bullets. So in terms of service agreements, if you operated your own departments, if those were your own employees and providing service on the regional district's behalf, you wouldn't need a service agreement. You would just delegate authority to your staff and they would do that. But it's not uncommon to have rural fire services provided by a community-based society. And in those cases, there needs to be an agreement between the society providing a service and the regional district, the government, who is engaged in to provide that service and provides compensation. So there's a list of bullets of things that would be in an agreement. Pretty standard for an agreement. There's mutual indemnification, insurance requirements, reporting, really important. So that if you're giving a society funding, and it's usually once a year, sometimes twice a year, that there's a payment, you want some sort of reporting back on progress and how they're. You probably don't want a line by line expenditure report, but you want to know that they're meeting how they're using those funds to meet the needs that are set out in the description of services. You want to set out how much they're being paid to provide the service. What is the service area? And we know that some of the communities regard their community to be a bigger area than what the regional district has defined as a service area. So we want to define that in the service agreement. Setting the services and service levels, and so the service agreement should reference that from time to time the regional district is at liberty to adjust those services. like any agreement, there should be a dispute mechanism, process for early termination and other things that you would find in any agreement. Next slide, please. Mentioned earlier that setting services and levels is best done in policy, because from time to time, those will change, and you want to be able to change those at your discretion without having to go through the process of a bylaw rewrite. Although you could do it, you could embed it in bylaw. So what services does the regional district want to provide in those communities, right? So that's a conversation likely with the communities and the service providers and your staff. Usually, I mean, they're created as fire protection service areas. Is it structural firefighting or is it wildland firefighting? That's both a service discussion and a service level discussion. Often fire departments can provide some sort of ancillary services like first responder, medical response, sometimes low slope rescue. They might provide rescue from automobiles from crashes, that sort of thing. So those can all be in the enabling bylaw. Bylaws are best broadly cast, and then the specifics of the service better to be in policy. And again, what are the levels of each of those? And is a little bit of I guess a seed for this further conversation. Is exterior structure operations the lowest level that the regional district will provide? Or is there a willingness, there's certainly an opportunity to provide a lower level, which is wildland, and we'll get to that. Next slide, please. Local government has been giving some profound powers, both in the Local Government Act, in the Community Charter, if you're a municipality, and in the Fire Safety Act, enabling the local government to or your agents to enter property to undertake tactical evacuations. So you can go on somebody's property and make them leave, and you can also keep somebody from going onto their property. You can also evacuate if you assume these powers in bylaw. You can evacuate or you can enter on and evacuate on the concern of a fire risk. So some really profound power to impose on people's rights and property. And you don't see those kind of powers anywhere else, I don't think. Certainly the police don't have those. And they're needed to do the work of firefighting. Currently, we couldn't find any evidence that the regional district has assumed those powers in bylaw and delegated those powers to the service providers. So societies are out there providing service, presumably entering property and potentially excluding people from property, and then interacting with their property without due authority to do that. And so there's some considerable risk there, both on the society and likely back on the regional district. So that needs to be cleared up. A delegation of authority from the board through to the society's fire chief, and then delegated through operational guidelines to the fire chief's staff. And the next slide, please. This trust piece, we understand that's likely provocative to put that on a slide and tell you that we saw varying levels of trust, and we saw that at the regional district. Varying degrees of trust in the service providers, and certainly saw that in the communities. Some of them more than others aren't ready to give themselves over to the regional district. They don't trust the regional district understands their situation, I think is probably the best way to put it. And that means that the societies that are providing that service, I think, are reluctant to varying degrees to hand the fire departments over to the regional district and say, you operate it, and we trust that you can operate it. So that'll lead us to a couple of slides from now when we talk about contracting societies. And certainly in Gun Lake, the wildfire situation, which was a very stressful situation for everybody, there's some lingering feelings about that as well. That can be addressed. That trust is built over time, as we know. So consistent behavior over time. Next slide, please. So I think we have to be aware that at some point, some community can't provide fire protection. It's just certainly not structured fire protection. So I'd like you to think about fire protection kind of in two bunkers, two silos. One is structured fire protection, and it's very risk inherent. And then the other one is non-structure or wildland. And to approach a fire involved structure, if you've ever watched a building burn, it's a super powerful, super impressive power or display of power, and things are exploding, and usually power lines burn off the building and will hit the ground, and they're still live, and they can tend to move as well. They've got some real memory, so they kind of want to roll up. So you can be standing at what you think is a safe distance and actually be electrocuted. There's lots of bad things that can happen around structure fires, and one of those is that people are out of their heads for a little while. It's primal, and people can get hurt just by their own actions, and so we shouldn't be enabling people to approach and interact with structure fires unless they truly are prepared to do that with the equipment and the training and the support and the supervision that needs to happen. It needs to all be encompassed, and some communities just aren't big enough to have that. So it's on us, and I will say Mr. Stoner and myself likely, to identify for you what those trigger points are, and then maybe come back and say, look, below this level, we just can't safely, we can't support people in interacting with structure fires and know that they're doing it safely. And some of those trigger points, some of these departments are flirting with that line. Next slide, please. So again, in structure firefighting, there's carries lots of risk. The province, so that when the province looks at fire protection, they split them out, and they've identified structure fire protection as a local government service, and they've managed, they oversee that through the Fire Safety Act, and they've enacted the Office of the Fire Commissioner to exercise the powers in the Fire Safety Act. And on other fire, wildland fire, they've retained that as a provincial responsibility, and they've got the BC Wildfire Service that deals with that. So that's kind of where those two types of fire protection split. So one is yours, the other is the province's. On structure firefighting, which is local governments, there's, as we talked about the safety aspect, it's so unique from wildfire that WorkSafe BC regulations actually have a specific section, Part 31, on structure firefighting, and puts in place a number of criteria to make sure that people are safe in doing that. And as we said, it requires personnel, equipment, and a water supply. If you don't have hydrants, Braylorn was the only community that we saw with hydrants, a hydrant water supply of the 4 we looked at. The other ones have to shuttle water, so bring tanker trucks full of water there. And one of them, Birkin, doesn't have a tanker truck. So on the water supply side, that's a concern for me. So those are the pieces that are needed for structure firefighting. Next slide, please. So if we look at the other side, the side that is the province's responsibility, wildland firefighting, that's what BC Wildfire does. And then where the two kind of overlap a bit is this wildland urban interface piece. So it's where the forest meets structures, and where local governments have established fire protection service areas and fire departments, they also provide, they also respond to wildland fires in their service area. And it used to be that the province had a policy that where there was a local government fire protection service area, the first 72 hours of a wildfire belonged to the local government, and after that, the wildfire service would come in. And I understand that they've taken away that hard line, and it's more of a shared responsibility. So if you use Gun Lake as an example, they would see the local fire department being the primary responder in the service area, in the local government service area. And while BC Wildfire is responding, and then they'll figure out who's going to take lead on. One will support the other. But wildland firefighting requires fewer people, a lot less equipment, a lot less water, and has considerably lower risk. So this, in some of these smaller communities, we'd like you to open your mind to, is that a level of service that the regional district is prepared to provide? Not structure, just wildland. Next slide, please. We talked about who's responsible. I think that that covers that. A bit of a shared responsibility inside a fire protection service area. And again, the regional district has established fire protection service areas in those 4 communities that already exist. You've already got a service area. You're already taxing people. You're sending some or all of that money to the service providers. The societies in 3 cases, but at Pemberton Meadows, the bulk of that money I think goes to the village to provide fire protection under contract. Next slide, please. So why would we consider this lower level of service? In some communities, the highest risk they face is wildland, not structure fire. And certainly, I drove in from Kamloops today and I reminded myself, coming over the Duffy or through Lillooet, what a diverse landscape this regional district deals with. And on this side, wildland might not be the highest risk. On the other side, yeah, certainly that's the biggest risk facing these remote communities in these valleys with only one road in and one road out. And so while that level of service aligns completely with the risks that some of those communities face. That level is more likely achievable in these small communities with smaller tax bases and smaller populations. In some communities that are seasonally populated, Gun Lake, maybe Birken, for example, the height of risk in the summertime aligns with the time that the community is populated. So it seems fairly natural that they could provide a service at that time and not provide it during the winter when they don't actually need it. Whereas if it was structure, fire protection, they wouldn't be able to actually meet their mandate much of the year. I heard the other day that Gun Lake had 4 people in the community at that point, like at that moment. So they're just not in a position to provide that level of service year round. And the last one I think is really important too. And we spoke about this when I first met this board, having an organized brigade or fire department in a remote community provides an organized group that can provide service to the only group probably that can provide service to that organization, that community, on your behalf, even on the behalf of the province or even the feds, I guess, depending on what the emergency is. And we shouldn't consider that, we shouldn't dismiss that lightly. Having a group that has incident command training, has radios, they can communicate with each other, has a facility and a vehicle or vehicles that they can get around. They can provide all manner of services for you. As Gun Lake did during the fire, I think they worked for the regional district in delivering evacuation alerts and notices, orders. So that is enabling those groups at some level can have additional benefits, including medical response. Next slide, please. So proposed next steps, Mr. Stoner talked about the three resolutions that the staff or recommendations that staff have for the board today. So we'd like to take that direction from the board. And then it's not likely that when we engage with the societies, if you directly do that they're going to say, yeah, we don't want to do this. Why don't you take it over? Certainly not at the first contact. So we would speak with them about, if we go back and meet with the societies, we would speak with them about the potential for them to become a support agency to a fire department that is directly managed by the regional district. But we'd like you to be prepared for them to not want to take that step yet. And so we'd like you to authorize that staff can engage with those societies about entering into agreements, those service agreements we spoke about. And really would like, with your direction, we'd like to go out and interact with societies and not just open, we've already opened the dialogue with them, but continue that dialogue around what their needs are. And once they feel that they've been heard, and I think they're partway there, they'll be way more likely, I believe, to understanding to hearing what the regional district needs. And then we can move forward with some agreements, hopefully. That is the last slide. The next one is questions.
Okay, questions?
This is fantastic, very informative. In the Upper Squamish Valley in the last 10 years, I was just making some notes as you were talking, we've had 5 major fire situations. 3 of those were structure, 2 were wildfire. I was at all of them. One of the wildfire ones was a clear division of who had responsibility, and BC Wildfire would not step in until it was a forest fire. And that was really hard standing by to watch. And I think just within this project, if you are, coming up with structure and a scope that works in these other communities, how are we potentially bringing that, or can we identify other areas like the Upper Squamish Valley that would benefit from this? They are I would say semi-organized. It faced some of the same issues that the other areas have in the sense that we have a smaller community. When the last fire happened, which was a structure fire, we were organized, walkie-talkies, it was quite well, good flow, good response. And I believe that they saved the forest from going up because it was a really hot risk at that time. But sometimes people are at work. So even if we have the members in the community, they might not be present. So if you have a fluctuating population that's present. So this is just me thinking that this is very important to work through these steps, understand these roles and the scope, and then understanding and identifying if there's other communities that have gaps or how do we support them? Because, yeah. I don't know if there was a question in there, that was a lot, but that was.
I think I heard the question, how does this work affect maybe areas that are not structured yet, where you don't have a service area, but people are wanting to provide service?
Yeah.
I would suggest that we maybe just pump the brakes on creating new service areas until we get a little further down this path. And once the regional district has established sort of some templates and exercise those, you know, service agreements and a policy, bylaw, a service level policy, and a wildland level of service, then staff will be able to engage with those groups and say, well, look, here's something that we could do to support you, right? As opposed to enabling them without that kind of structure, because if you accept the analogy of horses being out of the barn, the first thing to do is before you corral them is close the door, don't let any more horses out, and then let's get a handle on some of these services that have been enabled that aren't serviced yet that aren't documented. But it wouldn't take very long, I don't think, after that engagement with those four, for staff to be able to begin, and they can start to have discussions now. Does that work for you?
I have a question that I want to ask first. In the event of an area that isn't currently serviced in this way, you mentioned medical appointments, or not medical appointments, but medical response, car accidents, that sort of thing. Who steps in Gun Lake if there's who is responsible currently to attend to a car accident or a car fire?
Currently, I would bet dollars to donuts that the Gun Lake Fire Brigade goes, and I think they consider that all to be their area of responsibility, and they don't feel confined to the service area that the regional district has set. And why would they? They're not engaged in a contract. They get a check from the regional district, but there's nothing that says they report to the regional district. Nothing that I could find. So I would think that they would provide service as best they could. But given the funding relationship, does some of that responsibility lie with the regional district? I would think it would.
Yeah, if we're paying them to
Yeah.
after the fact.
Yeah.
And then I think taking that a step further, if someone is injured in responding to that car, maybe it's in Squamish Valley or wherever, are they covered by WorkSafe based probably to the level of the formal training that they are certified to respond to? I mean, we've got many levels of first responders throughout this corridor for many different reasons, but if you're not acting within the scope of your certification, who is covered, who is responsible for that WorkSafe, should that person be injured in our care, if you will?
Yeah.
Please.
Those are great questions, and that's exactly those two concerns that we want to address with a service contract. If you know exactly what you're supposed to be doing, and everyone is understanding that, and then you have some parameters to work within. I don't think those parameters exist right now. So that's what we're trying to do. Establish that everyone has their WorkSafe protection, they have their insurance, and then these are the parameters that you work within, and then WorkSafe BC's coverage won't be an issue.
Okay. I have a speakers list of Director Pettengill, then Director Birch Jones, and Director Herford. Sorry.
Yeah.
Second is Director Demare. So Chris, then Sal, then Vivian, then Armand.
Thanks. Just following up on this, just to make sure I'm clear. So I guess the goal is to have service agreements, provide funding, and it's all constrained as long as everyone's operating in the constraints. We have appropriate liability and so on. If for whatever reason you can't work out the agreements, the funding presumably ceases. would these societies then be unlawfully operating, or no, they can do what they do, it just doesn't involve us and they deal with whatever liability on their own, so it's not unlawful, it's just they've got that liability risk and it's their thing, or are we somehow still part of it, or?
If I may, first of all, I'm not a lawyer, so any answer I give would be an opinion. What I can tell you is that, if the board gives us the mandate that the staff is asking for today, we will go into the communities and meet with those 4 societies, and we will endeavor to reach agreements, as per the mandate you give, and we will come back to you regardless, and report back if we reached outcomes that are within your mandate, or if we weren't able to, and then at that time, you can consider options and staff give you advice on what your options are if we're not able to reach agreements within the mandate that you give.
So,
Okay.
just to clarify though, so is it theoretically possible, or are there places where, and it's fine, you know, societies exist without any involvement of their regional district, they just exist and they figure out their own way, and that's fine, they just deal with their own liability, and that's just the way it is in some places?
Some societies that provide all kinds of services are engaged by local governments. One of the challenges here is that you want the service because you've created these service areas and you tax for it. Presumably you want the service, you haven't defined it, and presumably you want them to provide it because you're giving them the money. So I think there's the intent seems fairly clear, but the execution hasn't been completed.
Follow-up question to that, is how has the community at large been engaged in, like, we've established the tax service, so they know they're paying for it. What's their expectation level based on your experience with communicating to that community?
Are you interested in that? Or I can if you want.
Yeah, in terms of engaging the community in terms of these discussions, I think the approach that we're taking this time is that we understand there's gaps associated and these groups are operating. So the first step of this project is really to shore up those pieces and to get those service agreements in place based off of the survey that's already been established. We understand that there potentially is there could be changes, whether they want to become kind of an exterior operations or they want to kind of become a wildfire operation. So I think they're, depending on those outcomes and the discussions that happen, the fire underwriter survey is a component of this. We want to make sure that the community understands the investment or the changes that could happen if it went or supposedly went down to wildfire operations. So I think this kind of first phase of this project is really to shore up the pieces, and then depending on what the outcomes are, we'll define that broader community.
Director Merrick, you're next on my list.
Thank you for the presentation and the work on this. Going back, I've said it before, but I'll say it again. Going back to 2012, 2013, I was president of the Gun Lake Fire and helped them move forward. We got WorkSafe, we got insurance, co-insured with the SLRD, et cetera, et cetera. At the time, we were just wildfire. And since then, they've moved on to various other services. And it's really important that the community is engaged in the level of service, the services that they provide. And I think it would be wrong to set the level of service and then say, okay, well, maybe we need more funding to do more training, et cetera. And the list goes on, equipment, everything else that goes along with it. So if the plan is to move forward with an agreement and set the level of service without the community input, I don't feel is the right way to go. The community needs to know what the level of service that they want. And is it feasible for Gun Lake Fire to be able to, or any one of these organizations to be able to provide that service? I know there's a lot of training That has to happen one way or the other with all these various services. So that's a pretty important topic, is how's that all going to get funded with all the training that has to happen. And the other one is mutual aid agreements. We've got Gun Lake Fire, we've got Braylorn Fire. Is there an opportunity to do mutual aid agreements? And with some of the services too, the various services being part of that mutual aid agreement. Okay, thank you.
Over to you.
Great point. So on the mutual aid, first of all, yeah, absolutely. You can enter into mutual aid agreements between the departments, and I believe there's already I don't know if they're formalized agreements, but between Birkin and the village, and between Pemberton Meadows and the village, there's a contractual relationship there. But certainly over in the Goldbridge area, there's an opportunity to provide to support each other through formalized mutual aid agreements. And I don't disagree that the communities need to be consulted on level of service, and it needs to be an informed consultation, so that people know that if they're choosing this is how much it costs. I mean, this is the requirement in terms of investment by volunteers and taxation, versus the other. And maybe going back to the varying levels of trust issue, I would suggest that the regional district start to engage the societies as the next step, and determine jointly the levels of service. If you're engaging with these communities, I think you want to engage with the society, not seemingly in opposition to the society. As an example, Gun Lake is really entrenched in the level of service they provide, and they're really clear. They don't want, the society doesn't want to provide what they expressed to me. They don't want to provide structured fire protection, and they don't think they're capable of doing that. So if the regional district was to try to engage the constituents on that service level, I think that might go really badly. It would seem to be doing it in opposition to the society. So I think building that relationship with the society first, and acknowledging right in front, we're going to need to go to the community together and ask them what they want.
Within the capacity that we
Yes.
established.
Yeah.
Yeah. My next question was Director Birch Jones, and then I have Director Herford and then Director Mack.
I have a couple. I just see a lot of opportunity. First of all, this is fantastic work. This is exactly what we need. And I'm hoping that with all the experience that you gain working in the lower portions of the SLRD, some of it may come up and apply in Area B, which is pretty high risk, but pretty under-resourced, and a real mixed bag of services in very far-reaching places. Certainly, the only service area that we have is Shalath, Seaton, which is a very complicated situation itself, and I don't see you listing that one as one of the early ones that we're going to be addressing, but it is hopefully in the plan. The Area B is in the future plan, I hope.
Good chair.
Question.
Absolutely, sort of an apples and oranges thing. So what we're
Yeah, I
talking
know.
about is society, fire department specifically. With Shalath, I am on the phone or email to Shalath weekly, and we are working very hard together to ensure that the service that is in our contract is being delivered to our service area, so.
That is so
Just because
good to
it's not here doesn't mean we're not working on it. We are working very hard with Shalath.
That is so good to hear. Thank you. And then also I see when I'm reading this, I go, well, obviously there's some opportunities for cross-training with our organization here, and we could do that. And so I feel pretty optimistic about the future. All my other questions are pretty specific, so I'll save them for later. Thank you.
Thank you. Armin, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I have the best, this really advanced my understanding of the challenges so that's great. My question is the sort of the other services that were mentioned sort of in the report and in the presentation, like the vehicle rescue piece. Is this something that these societies are contracted with companies to respond to? Like, I know that there's an interplay here from time to time with responding to incidents on a provincial highway, that type of thing. So are there existing agreements with these societies and the province or as well that play a role in our discussions here?
Not agreements in the sense that maybe you're wondering, but the province has a policy, an umbrella policy, a road rescue compensation practice. And so if a fire department responds outside of its primary service area into the provincial responsibility area, they'll get indemnification and recovery of some costs, within a prescribed structure. So you're not gonna get rich on it, but you'll cover off the bulk of your costs and provide service to people that can't get it from anywhere else. And the indemnification will be covered by the province. Similarly, BC Ambulance Service has consent and indemnity agreements that can be entered into and to provide to support them in providing pre-hospital care. So if you respond to a medical call dispatched by 911, you're working under BC Ambulance umbrella, and they cover the indemnity again. And in rural communities, they'll replenish any materials used.
So sounds like two different categories. One, there needs to be agreement for like the ambulance one. And the other one is just a blanket policy. And if a group of friends show up with materials to do the vehicle rescue, you can submit for compensation. It doesn't need to be an agreement. I'm probably minimizing it.
It doesn't need to be a pre-agreement. There's probably a registration so that you get basically an area, a service area. Right now, probably the village provides protection along and Lillooet on the other side, I would think. And they probably have a rescue coverage area that meets on the Duffy somewhere.
We're not aware of any of those types of agreements being in place with these that we may need to mirror or.
Not aware of any, but if you're talking about the Gun Lake area or Goldbridge area, they're 100 kilometers away from Lillooet, so there's potential that they could provide assistance outside of their service area until the Lillooet arrives. And if they were to do that, they could do it under the umbrella of the province.
So that doesn't form part of our work. We don't have to establish that level. That's sort of up to them, how much they take on and if they need to engage with the province to secure that.
Yeah, good point. It depends. If one of the societies wants to be active outside of their service area, you can enable that in your service agreement. You could say, they'll provide service outside under these set conditions, these set services under these set conditions. Or you can say any services they provide outside your service area is detached from you. And so if they want to go fight wildfire on the mountain and do it on behalf of the province, in that case, that would be theirs to do, not yours, right? So it really depends how you engage them in the contract.
Thank you.
Yeah, just with regards to road rescue in Area C, that is a separate budget that we have, Area C has with Pemberton Fire or the Village of Pemberton. So that rescue truck is covered to cover all of Area C. Anyways, but so with the wildland fire portion of this or thought, then see what's happening in Birkin right now is because they're not a FUS recognized department. Some insurance companies now, when insurance is coming up for people, they're just declining it. So they have, or they're saying it's $25,000 a year for insurance. Well, I mean, it's just out of reach. So people are not having insurance. Some people have actually moved and, vacated their home, so to speak, at the moment. So my way of thinking of this whole thing is the minimum standard that we should try to attain is exterior. Because that way, they will get a benefit from their insurance if we can meet that FUS rating. And that in my mind, that's what we should be working towards. So with Birkin, like say the Meadows folks, they've got trucks that are certified, FUS certified. because of the year of service, all that stuff. And they've got a water tank for that. Burke can more than do the same. There's money, available to do that. I think off the top, the best thing they would have is to get a tanker. They have numerous spots for water sources drafting, whether it's the lake or Gates Creek or whatever. But and then the other deal too, like what I've always said is we need to get a formal agreement with the Nequatqua for up in that area as your mutual aid agreement, right? Nequatqua has a pretty robust little fire department there. They train regular. The other thing too, with training, fortunately now, like Permian has a wonderful training set out at the airport. And we put money into that from here on the basis of people get to go there and utilize this facility. So there is we don't have to send people to the JI or such anymore. But I think the most important thing is to try to get to that exterior classification and then go, build from there. If you want to do medical calls, road rescue, all that kind of stuff, that's stuff that you can shoot for down the road with proper training, obviously. I mean, the number one thing is the safety of your people, right? So then that's where training comes in. But anyway, no, I welcome you guys being here.
Thank you.
Thank you. If I could just say, you're obviously well informed. I don't think we'd disagree with anything you said. That all of those things that need to be addressed, they start with engaging the society first, and then jointly saying, okay, what are we going to do? How are we going to do it? What's it going to cost? Community, do you want this service for this cost? Yes.
I have Director Demare, and then I'll go to Director Crompton.
Yeah, thank you. As you work through the wildland fire portion of it, we really need to look at the cooperative community wildfire response program with the province. And I know a couple of the societies, the new societies, that fire societies that we've had, I've asked them to go to them and talk to them, because that's where they're going to get the authority to do some of the stuff that they want to do. So it's important that community cooperative wildfire response program is incorporated into the wildland service, if that's one that we're going to work with for the wildland area. Thank you.
So we're working, it's not part of this report, but we're working on, if you direct that we explore a wildland level of service, what would be the minimum training requirements for that? And the cooperative community wildfire, CCWR, yeah.
Cooperative Community Wildfire
Response. That is one piece we're looking at, and there's a couple other wildfire programs we're looking at, because on structured firefighting, you can just go to the minimum training standard and say, okay, there's three choices. We picked this one, and there's the list of our obligations. There isn't that on for a local government wildfire level service. So on the CCWR program, BC Wildfire has identified a minimum level, list of minimum training criteria for society-based fire departments, but they're clear that they're not local government fire departments. So they haven't bridged that, and I think that's an oversight on their part. They assume that all local governments are structured firefighting, and we haven't found anybody in the province that is doing this the way that it needs to be done. So you have the CCWR over here, enabling societies that are detached from local governments, and then you've got over here local governments doing what they do, but there's not a bridge. BC Wildfire Service hasn't bridged that yet, and we think that's just an oversight. I think it is, and if this regional district allows staff to pursue down this path, I think you're going to create a template that will be replicated elsewhere in your regional district and across the province, because there's a need for this, and it's going unmet right now. And the CCWR was an attempt, but it didn't go far enough. It basically is, and I know some of you were at the roundtable discussions that led to that. It basically commits $10,000, I think, one time to societies, but the regional districts have to apply for it, I think. And so it pulls you into the game, but you don't have service agreements and service areas and all the things you need to go forward with that. So I think it was a good attempt. I don't think it's fully developed yet. And not casting aspersions on anybody involved. I just think there's more work to be done on the CCWR, but it will inform the minimum training standard for wildland firefighting. It sort of to beat this to death, but the CCWR envisions that those firefighters would work under the coverage of wildfire service. And what we're talking about is not that. We're talking about firefighters working under their own command and control for the initial part, but we need to import into that some command and control and first aid that are not part of that CCWR. Sorry for that.
So if I could reply, Chair?
Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, have you looked at the Thompson-Nicola Regional District, and they've signed on to the CCWR. And I saw one post where on their, actually was in one of their newsletters, and where a community responded to a wildfire, and they were praised for getting it under control, started getting under control before BC Wildfire came along. So I look at that, and that was one of the issues that we've got in our rural areas, is that, get to the wildfire as soon as possible. It is one of our areas of high impact, is all these little wildfires that we get from lightning strikes and whatever. Most of them are actually lightning strikes, and it's hard to get at it pretty quick. That's why I look at, the area of service right now for all these fire departments is basically on the private property lots. That's the area of service. So when you get outside of it, who's in control? Okay, it's a provincial government. And how does that relate to groups going out into the wildland and doing the work that they need to do to put out these spot fires? So I'd like to, if you could, part of this project on the wildland side of it is to go and look at what they're doing at the TNRD on that front, because they've taken on that program. Thank you.
Jack?
Yeah, I'm hearing that, at least they sound different to me, a minimum standard, which is exterior firefighting, and then I'm hearing that we may see back at the table for associations that can't meet the needs of the exterior, these wildland agreements. And that sounds reasonable to me, but I get the sense that there's some, and maybe this isn't a question to you as much as the rest of the table, it feels to me like what we're being told is the goal will be to try and meet this exterior piece. If it can't be met, we may see wildland agreements for some of these associations. And then that's the resolutions that we'll be putting on the table, I imagine, if we take the recommendation. So we could see 2 or 3 wildland agreements back at this table. And would we then be disappointed because we expected exterior back here? The question to everyone.
I think that's the question that will be informed by the engagement with those societies too. If they say we can't do it, we don't have anyone that lives here full time that isn't working outside of the community 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, that we can want it all we want, but we can't make them do it if they can't do it. So I think that's the information we need back from staff.
That satisfies me. I just wanted to be clear about it.
Yeah, thank you. Vivian?
But we can still provide them a level of support. And that is the third dot here, right? Continue investigating wildfire operations level of service. So that I see that fitting beautifully for a couple of the area B societies. And so I'm really pleased about that third dot.
I'm in agreement. I would move it.
Okay.
No.
I second it.
Are we there? I feel like we can be there. I feel like there's lots of questions that it's still yet to be answered. And I'm really excited about the level of engagement that you've got so far. And this feels like a really strong report coming to us in the near future. So with that, we've got 3 recommendations for resolutions here in the report and on the package. And we've got a mover from Director Crompton and a seconder by Director Birch Jones. Are there any comments from anyone? I'm not cutting off the discussion. I just feel like we've kind of exhausted all the possible questions for now. I don't see any, so I will call the question. All in favor? Is there anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, all 3 of you. Appreciate your work. Looking forward to seeing you again soon. And Bill, we didn't make a formal big hubbub of welcome to our team and really embarrass you in front of.
We don't need a big hubbub.
Also, we invite you to the wildfire rally.
Yeah.
I am going to test the board that we vary the agenda to bring in 8.3 as we have staff here and we have the proponent here in the room and he's been basically doing all day. So if the board will be amenable to varying the agenda and we will hear about electoral area C zoning bylaw amendment regarding duplexes and comprehensive development to zone. Is everyone comfortable with varying the agenda? Yes. Thank you. Okay. Director Dewar. The first, this is the maiden voyage of the director title for Director Dewar. And then she left.
It started to hurt.
That was quick. Sorry to catch you off guard. Thank you. Here we are. Oh, great. Thank you.
Congratulations, Claire.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Okay. The floor is yours.
Good afternoon. My name is Christina Bell, planner with the Squamish-Lillooet Regional District. This report is concerning its 3rd reading for the electoral area C zoning amendment for the duplex project proposed at DL 2247. The primary purpose of this report is to introduce the development agreement that has been drafted in the form of a section 219 covenant and to update the board on some infrastructure and reporting requirements. This development, as a brief overview, is for market housing consisting of 6 duplex buildings and 12 units total, situated on the west side of the highway across from the existing Wedgwood subdivision. Since 2nd reading, a draft development agreement has been written based on the draft development term sheet that was presented to the board at the time of 2nd reading. In accordance with board direction, the timing of the transit infrastructure and the pedestrian underpass construction has been moved up in the development schedule. So the transit infrastructure will be built prior to any development of the lands, while the construction of the pedestrian underpass will occur prior to any occupancy. The development agreement also requires that the community benefit cash contribution be delivered by the proponent at the time of building permit issuance for each unit, which is $200,000 per unit. Based on previous direction, it has been directed by the board that this contribution be put aside in a fund for affordable or non-market housing, but I'll address that in a bit as well. The proponent has confirmed the transit shelter model required by BC Transit and has submitted draft plans to the Ministry of Transportation and Transit for the pedestrian underpass and transit infrastructure. There's no substantive design comments from MOTT at this time, and the proponent is responsible for those approvals. MOT would own the pedestrian underpass asset, but maintenance and operations will be of SLRD responsibility. And the proposed transit shelter will require maintenance by the SLRD as well. So in order to fund this maintenance, staff are recommending that 2.5% of the community benefit contribution be allocated to a fund for maintenance and operations of this infrastructure. Additionally, staff are recommending the board direct staff to explore a mechanism through which more sustainable funding can be secured for the ongoing maintenance of that mentioned infrastructure, which may include a variety of options to be explored considering regional transit discussions that are taking place. One of these options may be the establishment of a service establishment bylaw. And then just regarding other infrastructure and reporting updates, for Vancouver Coastal Health, they have issued support of the zoning amendment in principle, so they have no objection to the proposed zoning, and proof of all of those permits will be required prior to commencing phase 1 as well. And then just an update on the archaeological impact assessment. The proponent submitted an application to the province for an AIA in October, but they were notified that the applications in the fast track stream, so those are applications with a residential component, those can take at least 6 to 8 months, like at a minimum. So therefore, staff have revised that requirement so that the full AIA can be a condition prior to commencing any development of the lands rather than at third reading or adoption. So if the board approves the recommendations, staff would work with the proponent to finalize deliverables required for adoption, including registration of the Section 219 covenant, and explore the funding options for ongoing maintenance of the transit infrastructure and the underpass. So I'll end it there, but happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Questions? Yeah.
So, and I'm looking at bottom page 395, but I'm just wondering, the current zoning has bed and breakfast there, but the proposed zoning has removed that. And I'm just wondering, is that because it goes from single family dwelling to duplexes? Or is there another reason that it's been removed?
I can answer that, yes. So through the chair, we wouldn't typically see a bed and breakfast in a duplex, so that is the reason.
That is the reason.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Because there are current homes there that can easily support a bed and breakfast.
Great, but a duplex.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Director Pettengill, you had a question?
Yeah, to the first, just understanding the timing or where the tax service, possible tax service establishment fits in, is this in this sort of thing? I think in other cases, we've sort of tied it to some part of the process to make sure it's done when there's a single owner deciding, as opposed to having to go to a community which might not be so receptive. So is that the plan, that this gets sort of agreed to before we get to a land development agreement or something? Or is this, no, we'll just sort of look at it for some time in the future and take our chances with the owners at that time?
Through the chair, it's my understanding these asks have typically been tied to, have not been typically tied to the development approvals process, because approval for those service established by bylaws are approval from the province. So I understand it was guidance that that establishment wouldn't be tied to the approval of a development, but I'll ask Claire to speak on more of that.
Yeah, thank you. So through the chair, we have had examples in the past when we have flagged that there's a potential need for a service establishment bylaw, and that it is easier to get those brought in when the lands are held by one property owner. And the process has been to request the owner of the land to petition the SLRD to establish a service establishment bylaw. At this point, we are at the very beginning stages of wanting to explore whether the SLRD would be interested in bringing in a new service establishment bylaw for I guess maintenance of services that are being brought in to reflect the needs of this development. And so that is like an ask that we can put, and it wouldn't be tied to adoption of the bylaw. No.
Okay, thank you. The other thing, and I think I asked this earlier on in the process, but not in the last meeting or two, just the ability to include a no gas covenant in the 219, is there an issue with that? And my understanding is there's no gas there anyways, but I'm just sort of wanting to deal with some, I would say, loopholes in the zero carbon step code. So if that's, would that be a challenge to do at this point, or if we wanted to?
Yeah, through the chair. Yeah, you're correct. The gas isn't there and it's not part of the proposal. Heat pumps are being planned, so I don't foresee there being an issue to adding it in the development agreement. And I know we have language from Prairie Creek Covenant and so on in that fossil fuel community that can definitely be borrowed and used. Yeah, I think if it was missed before, it could be helpful as a resolution to make sure that that's directly then related to the development agreement from draft to registration, because that's not something we would be bringing back for adoption.
My own question, further to the service establishment, so there must be a service establishment for the Wedgwoods existing neighborhood for road clearing, that kind of maintenance?
Thank you. So through the chair, there's only a service establishment bylaw in place for fire protection.
Okay.
There's no, otherwise it's the responsibility of the strata. And then we do have, portions of the, Sea to Sky Trail do run through the Wedgwoods, Wedgwoods Estates on the east side. Yes, so there are existing systems in place. They do not capture the new infrastructure that's being planned for.
Okay. And then I guess to the fire services established, would these new homes be added into the current service area, or does it have to be a separate?
Yeah, thank you. So through the chair, they are already covered. So that district lot is included in the existing in the fire establishment bylaw. And then I just want to circle back on the process to ask a developer to petition the SLRD for a service establishment bylaw. In the past, that has been made in writing. It hasn't been a requirement of bylaw adoption, but we have had that offer be made in writing from the proponent or the developer.
Okay. And then I remember the discussion around this is sort of to your question about the non-market affordable housing reserve that this will create. That will be held in trust by the SLRD for a future day. Is there any language in the agreement that would require that funding to be solely spent within Area C, or could it be spent anywhere in the regional district?
Yeah, through the chair, as far as the development agreement goes, the wording around that cash contribution is that it is contributed to us. The agreement doesn't specify what then we as the SLRD can use for it. So I know that it was a resolution in the past of the board for it to be allocated towards a fund. So that would be the direction that staff would take to develop that fund.
Okay.
I know there was discussions had about whether or not it stayed in the one electoral area or not, but there was no further resolution on that made up to this point.
And what would the process be? Would it be establishing a separate policy or a separate bylaw that would govern the spend of that fund specifically for a future day? Or would you want it to be established here at this process now?
Mm-hmm.
If we were to say it's going to be spent on the Harrow Road project because it's in Area C, or would you rather that fund be established and then the board has a discussion at a future day about what that funding would go towards? Does that answer?
No.
No.
No, that money is being generated by a project in Area C, and it's amenity funds. So that money, and I've talked to Mayor Richmond about this. I have a problem with taking Area C amenity funds and funding projects in other areas. And I could say all the municipalities, they get all their DCCs and such for their projects. We don't get any access to that money. So we have very limited money coming in to the electoral areas. So when we get a project like this and we get some, so what this money should be going to is like recreation or whatever in Area C. And that's what our policy actually does say. But what I'd like to see, so I'll compromise and say that money that's over and above can be put into an account for, non-market housing, well, fund for affordable non-market housing, but it has to be within Area C. Can be in the village of Pemberton, whatever, but, or Mount Currie, whatever, but it has to stay in Area C because it was generated in Area C.
So from a process perspective, is that a resolution that you would like at this time, or is that something to be dealt with by in a future discussion separate from this?
Yeah, thank you. So through the chair, for example, the reserve funds that are set aside from the original Wedgwoods Estates development, those are earmarked specifically for recreation services, and that's the parameter for there, and that is recreation services within Area C. So that establishing that expectation from the board right now is important.
Okay. Okay. Does anyone else have any thoughts on that they wish to add at this time? Okay.
I'm supportive of Director Mack's direction. As long as it does include municipalities within Area C, so I would think that's Whistler and Pemberton. And I like the idea of Mount Currie, that makes sense as well. I think the reason we decided that we didn't want to have the affordable housing in Wedgwoods was that it doesn't have the supports that are required for people to like a complete community. And so my preference would be to say Pemberton, if I'm honest. That makes the most sense to me. And even Harrow Road makes a ton of sense to me. Like if we could just like direct it now, I think that would be a very strong direction. Failing that, it seems to me that if we're talking about it being spent where it's generated, it should be spent in Wedgwoods. If we're talking about recreation or other resources, but I think we've taken a regional look at it. And so from my perspective, a Pemberton investment in affordable housing makes a lot of sense. And I think that agrees with the direction that Director Mack is taking.
I would like to say Area C, Pemberton, and to like to say Mount Currie, Lillooet, and even the Quatquat.
Why are you cutting us out?
Pardon me?
Why are you cutting us out? I mean, I'm with you, but like, but we're in Area C. You said anywhere in Area C.
You're not in Area C. Come on. You're in the valley for instance. No, I think you generate more than enough money of your own, and like I said, I haven't received any checks from you to go to Area C for anything, so.
But I guess I'm serious. I joking about the other things. Yeah, I know. But the Pemberton, Mount Currie feels like a really strong direction that I would second that resolution if you're making it.
Okay, so I'll move it. You seconded it.
Yeah.
I hear you.
Okay, let's do this right now.
Your head down. Well done.
Just right now.
I do have a hand from Director Demare. I don't want to ignore before I go to the calling question on this particular resolution. Go ahead, Sal.
Good conversation, and I support Director Mack. I look at the 2.4 million, and look at the interest that it would produce. At 5%, it's 120,000. 10% interest, you're looking at 240,000. And I'm wondering if, when this proposal is finalized, that the interest gained on the reserve be put to recreation in Area C or something else in Area C, so that the interest that's incurred through that $2.4 million goes to recreation in Area C.
Instead of non-market housing?
Yes,
I think-
exactly.
Because I think what this says is that when there's interest generated on a reserve, that it's all kept within the reserve, no matter how much it is,
Which is appropriate.
which makes some sense, especially with the current investing strategies.
Well, you change it, you change it, that reserve?
I think it complicates
Like
things. to be honest.
Yeah, it might complicate things, but it gives some funds to Area C to work with,
Director Drew?
which they need.
Hey, Sal, I appreciate your support, but I'm more than happy with the agreement that Mayor Crompton and I.
It's an agreement.
Wow.
Okay.
I do want to hear from Claire. You had your hand up.
That's fine.
Through the chair, I was just gonna mention that there are existing reserve funds set aside specifically for recreation. I think there's around 30,000 still from the Wedgwoods Estates original community amenity contributions. And we do often through other CACs granted smaller amounts. They're typically going into rec reserve. So this is a different reserve that we are setting up. And the September 25th board resolution just mentioned the CAC going towards affordable housing. So this is a really important clarification about where that geographic scope is. And then the other piece of that staff is seeking clarification on is around the recommendation for that 2.5% of that CAC be earmarked or set aside for the maintenance requirements of some of the other amenities that are being provided on site.
Yeah, the initial maintenance.
Mhm.
And then a further service establishment for the ongoing maintenance. Okay, everyone clear? Go ahead, Jenna.
Thank you to the chair. On that particular point around ongoing maintenance, I'm just curious if we have other examples of Ministry of Transportation infrastructure assets that we maintain. This seems unusual to me.
Yeah.
Omar?
Dr. Bud.
What's the question?
Specifically around other examples of MOTI infrastructure that the SRD is being required to maintain. If we have any other examples.
As pedestrian underpass.
Yeah, nothing's coming to mind right now. That's not Mott though, that's.
Would it be the proposed bus infrastructure at Britannia Beach? And that lay-by? Because that was a part of the discussion too.
So transit infrastructure is one thing, like I'm used to local governments being responsible for maintenance of like a transit stop. But I am not clear on why a local government is being asked to do maintenance of a pedestrian underpass of a highway. That seems odd to me.
Okay, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, and just to add to that, we struggle in other areas of the region where we have infrastructure under the highway, i.e. culverts that are
Yeah.
flooding people's properties
Yes,
that we're not allowed to touch.
right.
So this seems like a pretty strong double standard to me here, so I'd be happy to push back on that a little bit. I agree with the transit as well, transit becomes local government, but they have a pretty straight line saying, oh, you can't touch our infrastructure.
I want to touch there.
So why is it okay here when they're flooding elsewhere?
Okay, so I would like to parse out the resolutions that are written in the agenda because we had a really strong bilateral agreement between, no, like, I think that the language specifically stating non-market housing in area C as a single standalone resolution, just for the sake of clarity for the minutes. Can we handle it just as it was articulated before we get into the 2.5, and then we'll handle that as a separate resolution? Go ahead, Jack.
I was under the impression that the resolution was going to like articulate Pemberton and Mount Currie. Okay, so then I'm happy if it articulates those two places.
I want area C in there too, Jack. So area C, Pemberton, Mount Currie. Because something may come up where somebody comes in with a plan and says, oh, we're gonna put non-market housing on McCrae Road or wherever. And all of a sudden we're going, oh, well, we can't use this money there because it's not designated for there.
But
So
With the exclusion of.
no, but I would say that misses the intention of why we're not doing wedge. And I have a real interest in ensuring that wherever we build, and I get the sense that there is support amongst some on this board to ensure that non-market employee affordable housing is built in a place that has walkability to grocery, that it's a place where you don't need to have a car to live. And so if we articulate like a complete, I mean, I don't even know what the language would be, but something that articulates we're not putting it on McCrae Road, I think that would be meet the needs. But the reason I connected to what you saying Pemberton and Mount Currie is that those two definitions meet the need that I'm trying to.
okay, let's do that.
Okay. Angela, can you read me the resolution, please? Yeah.
I'll take a stab at it. The Community Benefit Contribution Reserve Funds for affordable and non-market housing be allocated towards future affordable housing projects in Area C, Pemberton, or Mount Currie.
I would say area C specifically within Pemberton, Mount Currie.
Yeah, that would, yeah.
And that way it's not so specific that it's handcuffed.
No, we have to have a little bit of flexibility.
Yeah. Okay. Everyone good?
It should, I'm just wondering if it should be a little bit broader than Mount Currie and Pemberton, just.
No, that's the motion on the floor has
That's
been
good.
well
No.
formatted.
Those are your. Okay.
We'll have, because we can what if it
Yeah.
for a long time. We don't want to do that.
Through
Yeah.
the chair, and I'm just thinking through our jurisdictional boundaries, and we have Village of Pemberton and we have electoral area C. Mount Currie is in electoral area C.
Yeah.
In terms of our jurisdictional boundaries.
I believe what she's trying to say is when we say area C, we don't mean Village of Pemberton.
Yeah.
So if we're specifying.
But area C is separate. Area C is Pemberton, Mount Currie, area C dot. So it's not part of, it's three specific locations, areas, whatever.
So we're including area C.
Do I have a suggestion to, if I can, just to help us get this over the line, I mean, perhaps the direction could be that direct staff to bring back policy that achieves these goals, and like the wording needs to be bang on to make sure that we can spend it in the right area, that it has the flexibility of that directors, Mac, and I think all of us would like to have. And then we don't need to nail the wording of it today. We can work on the intent, and then staff can work through the nuts and bolts of what that would actually look like for to be endorsed at a future meeting.
Maybe it, yeah.
Could that be a useful path through this?
looking at it.
Well,
for-
yeah,
I mean, I don't know what the answer is.
I don't know how hard this is. I mean, you know,
Well, we get to
we've got
wordsmithing
I think we've got a pretty good agreement here. So let's just move it forward, because the longer you put stuff off, things, ideas change.
I think staff is gonna come back with this policy for us to nail before the zoning is approved, right? So I think that your point is made. I think that staff have a good clarity on what we're talking about, and if not, you'll bring it back to us.
Yeah, so sorry, and through the chair, in terms of process, I don't see another conversation coming back here around the CACs and the reserve that they're going into. If there's a resolution now that can clarify and specify where how the reserve funds are to be used, that is in a board resolution. There could be separate work outside of this process around affordable and non-market housing and policy about how and where those are located. That doesn't necessarily have to be connected to this process unless there's a board resolution directing staff to come back for another discussion on this. We wouldn't be coming back at this point in time.
My understanding is we were asking you to come back with a reserve established with a policy that outlines where that money will be spent. We already established how it will be spent. This is now in the geographical restraint within Area C, specifically Pemberton or Mount Curry. There's not enough money to build all the housing in all places. Mike?
Yeah, I'm just trying to help make it easier. I mean, if we were to include a map or reference in it that says something like Taylor Road. So within the village of Pemberton and Area C from Taylor Road to the other end of Mount Curry, where the train tracks are. So just put a physical delineation on it for some mapping. I don't know if that helps. But I feel like we're spending a lot of time trying to decipher which neighborhood we're in.
My understanding would be that this policy would be make up the package of final adoption. Is that right?
I guess that's at the direction of the board. We haven't typically had a policy connected to reserve funds.
Oh.
So this would be a new process that we could bring to light.
Okay, I'm not trying to create new policy on the fly, and I'm not trying to, anyway, I don't want to belabor this, but I think it's an important point. Because the previous iteration of the recreation reserve that was established with the first development of which was established a reserve policy. I'm envisioning a very similar policy, but that instead of recreation, it's now establishing housing. But Jack.
That the CAC be reserved for the construction of affordable housing in Mount Curry and or Pemberton.
like, then all the question.
That's what I thought.
Okay,
No reference to Area C.
Well, it is the
That
area.
is Area C.
It's that we've went,
But we're saying.
and then
it's not
he's gonna
going-
bring back recommendations. So the goal is
Just
that
trying to
Area
shrink
C
it down
director
into the
would.
places where
Yeah.
there's population
That's right.
and there's affordable living.
Yeah.
It would fit with affordable housing.
That's right. Okay. Keep happy. Keep
Gotcha, Bill.
happy. Most of us are happy. We're moving on. I'm calling the question. Do you have a question of clarity?
I just wanted to add, for the sake of making a resolution, that the term should read community contribution benefit, not CAC, and that what staff have recommended is affordable and non-market housing, and that those should be differentiated because they have
I will
different
send these.
definitions.
Yeah.
It should be a resolution.
Thank you.
I'm calling the question. All in favor? Is there anybody opposed? Motion carries.
Yeah, so can I just comment on the resolution? Because, again, I don't want to belabor, but I just want to say that, like, I'm glad the CB package is gone. And I supported it. I voted in favor because I think, it supports something that we need badly in our communities. Despite the fact that I'm worried about sprawl in the future, but I wanna see now that we've put in these transit requirements. I'm curious as to how we maintain and keep transit services. Hopefully, this will get absorbed through our regional transit work. But in the meantime, we're putting pressure on our local transit. And so somehow we gotta make sure that the capacity keeps up as we put pressure on. Just wanna make that. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
I think before we go to the remainder of the recommended resolutions, I'm still curious about how we address the pedestrian underpass component. And whether we can actually just remove that from the list of things that we would maintain, or if we have been told by MOT very directly that we would have to maintain it. That might really make or break my decision here.
Yeah, through the chair, the proponent has been the one responsible for those communications, but it has been communicated to me that MOTT not indicated that they would own the asset, but the SLRD would be in charge of operation and maintenance.
I'll be clear to my colleagues around the table that is not something that I'm willing to put this organization in line of duty for doing. So whether that means that we refer it back at this point for further negotiation with MOTT, or we approve it without accepting that, I'm not sure if that's feasible, but that to me is a bit of a make or break.
I think the framing that Director Richmond brought up around emergency culverts and flooding mitigation infrastructure has been challenging for us. And so I think it's worth pushing this conversation back to the negotiation if we can do that before adoption. Director Demare, go ahead.
Yeah, just listen to the conversation on it. Is it actually stated that it's for the operations and not the maintenance of it? They're two different things. Operations to me would be the cleanup of it and so on and so forth.
Yeah, through the chair, this is wording received from the engineer who had discussions with Mott, so I'm not able to comment on the direct wording from Mott themselves, but the information that I have received, the wording was operations and maintenance.
And maintenance?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Did you have a follow-on resolution you wanted to make? or-
Well, I think I'd see, before I make a resolution, I'd see clarity from staff, whether like we're asking to consider third reading. Typically we don't make substantive changes between third reading and adoption. So I'm just curious to get a temperature check from staff, whether this is something we refer back to you at this point, if we provide third reading with a condition that that component gets removed by time of adoption. I'm just trying to find a pathway forward here that is clear to all of us around the table.
Thank you. Through the chair, may I ask a clarifying question? Is the thinking that if the SOD is responsible for maintenance and operations, we need to be coming up with a different approach to that connection in general, and that we may not want to see that pedestrian underpass built? Or is that the level of design refinement we're potentially considering? Or are we exploring other ways of other agreements for maintenance and operations?
Through the chair, and thank you for the clarifying question. I want to recognize that we're at this position because the board requested for a safe passage from one side to the other. And that running across the highway was not that. And this is the solution that has been presented by the proponent. Where I still don't feel like I'm willing to put this organization at future risk is that we then become operators and maintenance of a piece of Ministry of Transportation infrastructure. And so to me, that means that this design isn't good enough without clear willingness from MOTT to take over that operations and maintenance. So to me, the design as presented is really substantive offer from the proponent to try and provide a safe crossing. But if this is the only way that it's going to happen and MOTT is not willing to take on operations and maintenance, then to me, it still doesn't feel like it's a reasonable balance as I do my calculus in my chair as a board director. So I just want to be clear with my colleagues that that's where my thinking is at, like, we're getting really close on, the proponent and this board and staff have put a lot of time into this application. This feels like it's still a bit of a make or break for me. And so, I don't want to just keep it on life support for the sake of keeping it on life support. If I need to turn it down, I will do that today. But if there's an opportunity to push back on MOTT a little bit here, and maybe still give this the light of day, then that would be my preferred direction. Slightly political response, sorry. My colleagues.
Sort of, to give my colleagues where my head is, I have a very much similar perspective. For me, I would prefer to see this to come back also with a no gas covenant, which I see as sort of a low barrier thing to add at this point, but important. I've been on the fence with this. I think having gone back and forth with where we are, if we could get MOTT to take responsibility and have those pieces in, I could get to supporting this, but I think it is even establishing, getting a signature on a tax service area and so on, seems overcomplicated. It just seems like there should be MOTT and so we should sort of ask to see that from my perspective for it to be supportable.
Do you think that's possible? To get to a point, because I think the issue that if we had the ability to push culverts that are problematic fall after fall after fall back to MOT and say, this is yours to manage and operate, we would, but we can't. So in this phase of our development, can we say, we will take that on, we will own the, like, that's what you're asking us to do. Do you think we could say, we don't want that, we want MOT to manage and operate, maintain and operate this underpass? Do you think we can get there?
Thank you, through the chair. We would need to have discussions with MOT staff directly. I wouldn't be able to answer that here and now. There had been discussions with previous staff on this files, and we're working with the information that we have in our emails and that the proponent has communicated. We can absolutely take this discussion back to MOTT and see where we can get. I wouldn't be able to say either way what that outcome could look like.
Okay. But
I'll make a motion that we refer this back to staff to connect with MOTT on operations and maintenance of the pedestrian underpass. And bring it back to the board when there's clarity on that agreement going forward, and that future bylaw also contains a no gas covenant.
okay, you're seconding it? You're gonna comment?
This is a question to the mover. I agree generally with this direction. I think about supportable outcomes could be like, would a strata being responsible for this, like someone that's not, is it important that it's not us, or is it important that it's MOTT? And that's, I think for me, it's important that it's not us, and maybe I'd entertain it if the strata did that. I know we've had challenges with this in Squamish, where we send snow clearing through and directly adjacent to MOTT, and then they snowplow through like 5 minutes later and bury it back. But like this, this is a challenging piece. I just don't know if the resolution sort of leaves the door open for someone that's not us to take that on, not necessarily MOTT.
Someone that is not us.
Question, the golf cart underpass that goes from Furry Creek one side to the other, who does that? The golf course.
Yeah, it would be the golf course.
Yeah.
But it is MOT highway that presents all of the challenges that, I mean, not like they get a lot of snow there, but yeah.
I think a good example would be the Furry Creek sidewalks, which Director Buck could speak to more thoroughly. They're pretty much abandoned because MOTT won't take ownership of it, and SLRD was
Yeah.
clear at the beginning.
Yeah.
that they weren't going to, and now they require maintenance and upkeep, and they're
Right.
not within the strata.
Right. So that's challenging too. Director Crompton, go ahead.
June, I couldn't find in there how long the 60,000 lasts us, this. How long the 60,000 will, how much will cost a year to manage?
Through the chair, we don't have that information at this time. It was wanting to ensure that we have some funds
Yeah.
set aside. And that was our best guesstimate as staff, to make sure that there was some funds there while we figured out how best to address that maintenance and operations of the infrastructure. And I will say, like, we do have, we have the Sea to Sky Trail that is in operation as a regional network. And so there are other ways that we could be thinking about connecting our communities in more of like an active transportation and transportation corridor planning way. And so whether it's a service establishment bylaw or whether it's connecting it to existing operations and services, these are all questions that we would be working through.
It seems to me that a service establishment bylaw sort of makes more sense of a regional district and how we operate things. Would the existing strata need to agree to a service establishment bylaw, or could you do it for the other side of the highway?
Cause it'll be a separate strata,
Yeah, no kidding.
right?
Yeah.
Or is it, yeah, it's, yeah.
I look forward to seeing what we get back. I just can't imagine MOTT is gonna agree. So I think we should put our minds to figuring out how we would do this in another fashion when they come back and say no.
Okay. So there is a motion on the floor. Any further comments? Any further clarity required? I don't want to beat a dead horse. There's still a lot more information we need. Okay, I'm gonna call the question on the motion that's on the floor. All in favor? Is there anybody opposed? Motion carries. Okay,
Beat a live horse now.
pardon?
Beat a live horse now.
Okay. So in light of,
7.2, I think.
well, no, we're not done this still, because we can adopt the 219 minutes as it's presented. Because it's not contingent on that information. Pardon me?
The no gas license, I think.
Oh, it is, okay.
I think staff were also, but the 2.5% also too, so.
Do you want to recess and we can just make sure that we've got everything? Then I can stretch my serious circle. Okay, 5-minute recess. We are live. And so over to staff. Anything else you need from us that we can move forward to continue this ball rolling so that.
Thank you. Through the chair, the resolutions that have been provided today provide good direction for us to work on the next steps.
Okay. So are we suspending the rest of this until you come back with that further information? Okay. Everybody comfortable with that? Great. Yeah, so should we call it a day on their thing?
All right.
Not a day, just on this item. Thank you. And so we, just for certainty for the proponent who has patiently waited for this, we can't move anything else forward at this time. Okay. Thank you. All right, we're gonna go back in the agenda. Here we left off. 7.3. 7.3. 7.3.1, which is the PVIS committee recommendations of January 15th. We're dealing with specifically a direction request regarding the 2026 Pemberton and District Initiative Fund applications, long-term and one-time. There are many. We have Colin coming to these, or do you want to just ask if there are questions?
Probably ask if there were questions. This did flow through the police committee the other week.
Right. Are there questions for staff? From anyone?
We pass them all.
We can pass them all together. Does anyone want to make that motion?
I will make that motion.
Director Mack is making a motion, and I bet you Director Richmond might second that motion. Are there any comments from anyone? Okay. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. That was easy.
Nice to meet you.
That's a lot. It's pages of my life. Okay, 7.3.2. This is the preliminary 2026 draft PVIS budget review. And we've got only 2 cost centers to be approved as presented.
No, move that.
By Director Mack, seconded by Director Wisdom. Are there any questions here, Bob? Any, so I will call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. We will now move to 8.1. Okay, now at the Pemberton and District Recreation Service Policies and Bylaw Review. Gail here to talk to us. Hello.
Hello, Gail Harris, Legislative Coordinator with the SLRD. I'll keep this brief. The transfer of the recreation assets to the Village of Pemberton was completed on the 31st of December, and the Recreation Service Financial Contribution Agreement is in effect as of the 1st of January this year. So as a result, staff are bringing forward the policies and bylaws that are associated with the recreation services that will require amending or repeal to reflect the updated governance structure following this transfer. The table in the report outlines the proposed changes. The bylaw and policies that are proposed to be repealed relate only to facilities that are now managed solely by the village. Any questions? Start with that. Thank you.
Any questions? No? Everyone comfortable? Okay, so we've got a few different motions here. We're not going to deal with them all at once. We're going to deal with we don't want them each individually, or do you? Or just like lots.
And we can do them in blocks. So the first one has to be read separately and then adoption separately.
So bylaw 1944-2026. And that is to be read a first, second, and third time. Can I have a mover, please? Move that. Second by Director Crompton. Comments? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. And that bylaw number 1944-26 be adopted. Moved by Director Mack, seconded by Director Hotful. On it. All in favor? I'm sorry to this. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, now we've got bylaw 1945, and this is the service fees and charges repeal bylaw. Be read a first, second, and third time. Moved by Director Pettengill, seconded by Director Stoner. Comments? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. And that the bylaw 1945 service fees and charges repeal be adopted. Moved by Director Bridgestone, seconded by Director Hotful. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. And that the amendments to the Pemberton and District Recreation Service Turf and Sports Field Maintenance Policy 4-2015 be approved as presented. Moved by Director Mack, seconded by Director Richmond. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. And that the amendments to the Service Parks Inspection Procedure Policy 6-16 be approved as presented. Moved by Director Mack, seconded by Director Dijon. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. That the amendments to Pemberton and District Recreation Service, that the following board policies be rescinded. Policy 1.18, Policy 9.4, and Policy 9.3. All of these policies applied in a previous iteration of our service agreement. Moved by Director Burford, seconded by Director Burchett. All in favor, any opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Maybe that's the last time we'll talk. Wonderful, I love it. How are we doing, everybody? Okay, we're going to 8.2 and we're talking about the Area A OCP bylaw amendment 1943. Bell? Welcome back. No. Talk to us about Greylorn Adventure Lodge. Okay.
Okay, good afternoon. Again, my name is Christina Bell, planner at the SLRD. This report is concerning the Greylorn Adventure Lodge OCP Amendment Bylaw 1943-2026 in electoral area A. The purpose of this report is to request first and second reading for Amendment Bylaw 1943-2026. First, I'll provide an overview of the readings that have occurred thus far, and then the reason for bringing the OCP Amendment Bylaw to first and second reading and outline next steps. So the Squamish-Lillooet Regional District Upper Bridge River Valley Official Community Plan Bylaw 1996 Amendment Bylaw 1863-2024 and the Zoning Amendment Bylaw for Greylorn Adventure Lodge received first and second readings in May and June of 2024. But on September 25th, 2024, the board denied third reading of the amendment bylaws and requested a second public hearing be held, as well as more information be presented in a more comprehensive management plan. But afterwards, during that time that the application was being revised by the proponent, the Area A OCP bylaw was repealed and replaced with a new Area A OCP, which was bylaw 1822-2023. And that was in December 2024. So as a result, a new OCP amendment bylaw has been prepared to reference OCP bylaw 2023. Therefore, the new amendment bylaw must receive first and second reading before proceeding to a public hearing. So this is an administrative change and no changes have been made to the content of the OCP amendment. The proponent has developed a management plan and they are ready to move forward. So if the recommendation is approved by the board, staff will schedule the public hearing and then bring the zoning and OCP amendment bylaws back for consideration of third reading. And that's when the management plan and other updates would be provided. Thanks.
Thank you for the very clear walkthrough of the procedural nightmare that we have found ourselves in. I think I'm just curious, that don't we typically have protections for in-stream applications so that when like legislation changes around something that is under review and consideration, don't we typically do it against the policy that is in place when the application came in?
Thank you. So through the chair, that is correct. From a policy perspective, we still have to address the bylaw aspect where the bylaw was actually repealed. So the amendment bylaws themselves don't actually exist anymore. So this is really just a procedural step, and we have flagged this as needing to bring in policies and procedures in our department to flag this sooner so that we aren't we don't find ourselves in a situation like this. And this, yeah, it's just a bit of tricky timing and an application working through the process over many years. I think that's what I hear.
Thanks for the clarity.
Any other questions? Director Mayor?
Yeah, can I move both that, or do we have to do them separately?
You can move them together. Thank you. So this is a first and second reading and to schedule and advertise a public hearing. To be
So
held.
I'll move them as presented.
Fantastic, thank you, and seconded by Director Jones. Comments? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Well done. Done 8.3. And now we're on 8.4. Okay,
Hi. Good afternoon, Kristen, Fire Director of Strategic Services, and just to do a quick overview. The purpose of this report is to request that the board give first three readings. Direct that the bylaw be forwarded to the inspector for approval and to authorize participating area approval by way of an AAP, an alternative approval process for the entire service area to be conducted by the SLRD. The proposed bylaw would provide the legislative framework for the service and has been designed for maximum flexibility while maintaining board oversight over specific funding levels up to the maximum requisition limit, and this would happen. This oversight would happen through the annual budgeting process. There's also flexibility in terms of which organization is undertaking the activities related to the Squamish Valley Agricultural Plan, and that could be the SLRD, it could be District of Squamish, or it could be external organizations. I will just, the report contains some scenarios for what this maximum annual requisition could look like based on, and for the purposes of the examples, it's based on a 10% residential property class taxation rate. So for a residential property valued at $1 million located within District of Squamish, this would be if requisitioned at the maximum, this would be a tax requisition of $3.85. And for a residential property valued at $1 million within electoral area D, this would be a tax requisition of $4.05, which is slightly higher than the District of Squamish requisition amount due to the mandatory 5.25 collection fee charged by the province for collection of electoral area tax requisitions. So staff are recommending that participating area approval be obtained through an AAP conducted by the SLRD for the whole service area. Staff have determined the total number of eligible electors within the service area to be 22,976 electors. There's a report attached that shows how that number was arrived at. And this means that a minimum of 2,297 elector responses would be required to prevent the board from proceeding with considering adoption of this bylaw without further assent of the electors. So if the AAP is successful, I would expect the next time to be here in front of the board would be for consideration of adoption. And if the AAP is not successful, meaning that 2,297 elector response forms are received, I would expect to next be here to provide the update as to the results of the AAP and to ask the board to consider proceeding to assent voting in respect of the bylaw. And in that case, a successful assent vote would occur before the board could consider adoption of the bylaw. So there are a series of recommendations. The first three readings of the Squamish Valley Agricultural Plan Service Establishing Bylaw, a resolution pertaining to forwarding this for inspector approval. Legislation requires a 2/3 majority vote in terms of authorizing participating area approval for the service area as a whole. And then there's direction on how the notice of AAP will be published, which is in the two newspapers, the Squamish Chief and the what the deadline date will be for that and how electors can respond. with the elector response form, and the SLRD has collaborated with District of Squamish regarding, District of Squamish providing, a pickup, providing pickup of the document if people want a physical copy, and a physical copy can be dropped off at District of Squamish. Otherwise, elector response forms can also be emailed, faxed, or mailed to the SLRD office. And sorry, I didn't probably say one of the most important things, which is the maximum requisition amount has been set at $75,000 or the equivalent rate per thousand, which is 0.00483 per $1,000 of assessed value.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions? We don't see any questions. Would someone like to move it? Can you move it all? No. No?
Let's try.
Yeah.
Good try though.
If we can move the first three separately, and then we can move the first two together.
The first two
Together, yeah.
Okay, so that bylaw 1946 be given first, second, and third reading. And that the agricultural plan, sorry, Squamish Valley Agricultural Plan Servicing Establishment Bylaw 1946, together with the associated staff report, be forwarded to the Inspector of Municipalities for approval. Moved by Director Stoner, seconded by Director. Comments? Go ahead.
Yeah, it's thank you to staff, both this organization as well as the District of Squamish, for coordinating on the logistics of getting this across the line. It's been many years that we talked about it since we approved the Squamish Valley Egg Plan, that this has kind of been the vision. And so it's great to see that we are there. And I hope that our communities see great value in supporting this work. It is an additional taxation, yes, up to $75,000. It's not guaranteed that that is what future boards will necessarily requisition for. But it's putting money towards a key part of the livability of our communities across the corridor, and making sure that Area D and the District of Squamish can come together to support local farm systems throughout our corridor. And so I hope our community supports the AAP process and it's smooth sailing from here on in.
I just had a comment and then wanted to make an additional motion with this. This is my first motion, so it might need a little help from you guys. I think that as you say, this is super beneficial, and it's great to see the whole service area. In Area D, a lot of the agriculture land is within Upper Squamish Valley and Paradise Valleys. So I think the language sometimes of the Squamish Valley Ag Plan feels like it's limiting to the Squamish Valley, but it is that bigger service area. The motion that I would like to move with this is requesting that staff looks into either the viability and benefits of getting an agriculture advisory committee specifically for Area D, so that there are members of the community that have communication or are aware of these potential funding opportunities. Because as we were saying, there's more than one, it's not limited to one funding, there's flexibility with how that funding can be provided.
So I'm gonna put that on the shelf for a minute, and we'll deal with the motion that's on the floor.
Sounds good.
And then I'll come back to you.
Okay.
Are there any other comments on the motion on the floor? Being none, I will call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. And we'll deal with that one now. So ask staff to come back with a report recommending the benefits or and costs of striking an AAC for Area D.
Yes, yeah, because we've seen success with it in the other regions.
Yeah.
I believe we've seen success with it in the other regions.
Totally.
And so I think it would be a great time as this is introduced to also get that level of involvement from the community.
Agreed. Yeah. Go ahead.
First, I also, when I was reading this, I'm going Squamish Valley and I'm thinking of that.
Yeah.
Is this limited? I had to sort of look around. Oh, no, it's all of Area D. Okay, that's great in terms of taxing and everybody benefits. So I completely agree with that.
Yep.
But yeah, I was also a little misled by the title of it. So that is a thought. And I also thought this cries out for an agricultural advisory committee to be established, and I'm so second your motion.
Okay, great. So you were seconding it?
Yep.
Great. Any further comments? Awesome, thank you. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. And, okay, we're now on that the board authorized participating area approval. 1946 be obtained for the service area as a whole in accordance with section 342(4). Do that separately. Okay.
That's one.
Moved by Director Herford, seconded by Director Stoner. All in favor, any opposed, motion carries. And now the big long one, that upon receiving approval of the inspector of municipalities and as soon as applicable, publication deadlines allow participating area approval for Squamish-Lillooet Regional District, Squamish Valley Agricultural Plan Servicing, establishing bylaw 1946 be authorized by way of section 345. Et cetera, you must read. There are many components of this. I remember. Is that like the rest of the?
I mean, there's a final motion that can be
Okay.
together with that one.
Okay. And that in accordance with section 86(4) of the community charter, staff report associated with this bylaw. And be made available to the public by posting on our website as well as available at our office and the district Squamish Municipal Hall. Moved by Director Hoppel, seconded by Director Birch Jones. Comments? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
Question for Ms. Clark. Can the alternate director give approval in the absence of the director? Is that, I just see there was somewhere in there was a reference to, for approval to. I just wondered if the alternate had full authority to do that.
Yes.
Thank you. Yes, good. That makes sense. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. We're moving along to 9.1.
Hi, everyone. Heather Paul, CAO SLRD. Just a quick update. We'll keep this brief. That want to let everyone know that the SLRD was a successful recipient of the UBCM Fire Smart Grant, and it was $800,000 over 2 years, 2026 and 2027. This is incredible support for what we are very volatile or region for us. The funding is going to support the continuation of Fire Smart residential programs for all SLRD residents. That includes the education, the free assessments, the rebate program, and the community events, as well as the completion of the Area D Structure Protection Unit and continuation of critical infrastructure and Fire Smart initiatives. I want to recognize the wildfire mitigation team at the SLRD for both their advocacy and work towards gaining this grant and everything they do from day to day.
Thank you. That's great news.
Yeah, I would recommend that this goes out to the province. Recognizing the benefits that this funding gives to the community. UBCM just recently announced that there is some limitations to the current funding and it is not guaranteed. And since we have the first vice president of UBCM here, they can speak about it.
Thank you through the chair. Great timing to hear that we got our application in when we did, and we just received 2 years of funding. We have just found out from the province that there are no additional funds being added to this program at this time, and so there's about $25 million left. And so UBCM is just a partner in delivering the funding that the province set aside. And so the intake model will now shift starting as of today. There'll be a week for communities to submit applications for the remaining $25 million that will spend out the remaining of the fund. We are asking and continue to advocate for UBCM as the province goes into their 2026 budget, the importance and the role that this program has played to communities across the province. And so if the board would be willing to write a letter of support for the program to the Premier and the Minister of Finance, that would be greatly appreciated.
A letter of thanks for the money we've got. And we just continue to support this program indefinitely. Moved by Director Stoner, seconded by Director Richmond. Comments?
Very good.
Okay, all in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Adios, Director Crompton. See you tomorrow.
Your jacket's behind the door, Jack.
Thought he wasn't paying attention. Yeah, I knew there was some hidden fondness for you there from Russell.
Yeah, they can make it relevant.
Okay, moving along, 9.4. This is the appointment of the chief election officer and deputy chief election officers in the upcoming general local election. Gail.
Hi, Gal Harris, Legislative Coordinator. Yes, the purpose is to report is to appoint the Chief Election Officer and the Deputy Chief Election Officers for the 2026 local government election. It's been recommended to the board that pursuant to Section 58 of the Local Government Act, that Angela Belsham is appointed as the Chief Election Officer, and myself, Gal Harris, and Raylene Rahill, Legislative Coordinators, are appointed as the Deputy Chief Election Officers for conducting the elections this year.
Any questions? Go ahead.
I was just gonna move it.
Okay, it sounds like seconded by Director Herford. Any comment? No? Okay, actually, I have a question. If you're unable, this is 8 months from now, do we have to come back and get another resolution because we've specified your names in this resolution? Do we then have to rescind and reappoint?
Or
Say you went on holidays.
No.
You're not allowed to go on holidays.
Yeah, basically. For the chief election officer and the deputies, yes, there would be a new appointment, but that's one reason we now have two deputy chief election officers, that it will spread the workload, or if there is some form of absenteeism, that it is covered.
Okay.
Did Miss Clark just do this by herself in the past?
Through the chair, she had one deputy chief election officer. My recollection is this may be one of the first where we've had two deputies.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion carries. We now have 9.5, and this is an information report regarding our privacy policy review. You again.
Yes, I'm still here. Yeah, the purpose of this information report is to present the privacy policy. As per section 8 of the policy, a review is required every 3 years to bring it back to the board or at the request of the privacy officer at any time. We have completed a review of the policy, and based on this and that there have been no legislative changes to any privacy acts, then we aren't recommending any amendments at this time. So this was just an information report. Here for any questions.
Awesome. Questions? Or you want to move it?
If there were changes, like, would this go in front of the policy committee at all? Not that I particularly want to see it. I read it. It's fantastic. And I think you guys are doing great work. But if there were questions, is that something that would go to the policy committee?
Yes, through the chair, if there were recommendations to change the policy, yes, it would.
Okay.
Because this is just an information report and it is directed to be presented to the board. That's why we've done this, just as an efficiency process for this time.
Excellent. Yep.
Thank you. Would you like to move it?
So
Move receipt of the information.
please.
Seconded by Director Pettengill. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. 9.6 is an information report regarding the planning of Q4. Director of Planning. Mayor Dewar.
Good afternoon, my name is Claire Dewar, Director of Planning and Development Services. I will just give a really brief overview and then happy to take any questions that the board may have. So this planning Q4 report, the purpose is to respond to the board resolution from July 2020, where staff were to prepare an information report on a quarterly basis with a list of all development applications that have been received during the previous 3-month period and already in process. So the purpose of this report is to provide a board update on the planning and development activities during the 4th quarter of 2025. So that's from October to December. Planning staff received and completed 14 applications in Q4. A summary is in attachment A, and to note that
there were 3 new zoning amendment applications received for area D and C, and these applications are expected to be presented for consideration of first reading during the first quarter of 2026. And I'll leave it there for any questions. We have a slightly different format to this report as we have broken it down by electoral area in the to help present the information in a more digestible way for the board and public.
Thank you. Very helpful. Questions?
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you through the chair. This is very helpful. I just noticed how quick our turnaround time is on wildfire DPs. And is that just because like they're very straightforward? Some of them are like within days, which I just want to celebrate first of all. But I'm curious what the differentiation between like a wildfire DP and.
Yes, thank you. So through the chair, this is a nice opportunity to highlight that we have brought in cloud permit on our planning side, which means that we can receive, review and issue development permits in a more expedient fashion. So that is improving our processing time. And I would also say that the wildfire development permits, we do spend time upfront with applicants. So the applications, when we do receive them, are typically ready to go, and they have they are reviewed most often in connection with building permit applications. So it's connected with that process as well. So we are able to issue the application, receive and issue applications in an efficient manner. Yeah.
Thank you. Director Demare?
Yeah, thank you for the report. I liked the little summary at the beginning of the document for each area, and the new template with just electoral areas is excellent. Thank you very much. I went through them all and excellent report.
Okay, great. Would someone like to move receipt? Moved by Director Stoner, second by Director Burge Jones. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. 9.7. All in here. Mr. Hodges.
Yeah, Colin Hodgins, Deputy Director of Finance. This report is just providing an update on the 2026 reserve balances for the Community Works funds, the BC Hydro Pilt reserves, and the amenity funds as well. Just to highlight that these amounts are estimates at the moment. We're still working on wrapping up 2026. So, as we get invoices and things, these might change slightly. However, for 2026, these amounts do include any revenues that are expected in 2026, but they don't include any projects that have not been fully approved. And that would include anything that's been allocated in the draft budgets that you've seen so far. So it only accounts for projects from 2025 and assuming that those are wrapped up in 2026. Just quickly going through for the Community Works funds. We have Area A has a estimated balance of $109,000. Area B has $428,000. Area C, $621,000. And Area D, $220,000. For Pilt reserves, Area A has $412,000. Area D, $375,000. And the Southern Reserve has $323,000. But obviously we did have a resolution earlier today, so just keep in mind that there was some funds allocated that are not shown in this report. And then lastly, we have amenity funds. We have $32,000 in the Miller Creek Fund, $40,000 in the Rutherford, $34,000 remaining in the Wedgwood Recreation Fund, and $112,000 of Area C CAC funds. And the Area D for a Creek amenity has $92,000.
Great.
Now I'll open up for any questions or.
Questions? Go ahead.
I have a few. So it looks like amenity funds stay within the area of impact, right? That's the thinking there. On Community Works funds, I think you might be working on it already. A rescue truck versus a fire truck. I'm hoping that we might be able to put some funding from community works funds towards a rescue truck. So I know they fund fire trucks. And also I see bridges, there's a Forest Service Road bridge. Some portion of that, is that a fit? Would a Forest Service Road bridge fit under bridges? It's another question for community works fund.
I can certainly take that offline. I am aware of the rescue truck. I don't have an answer today on whether that's
No, of
eligible
course
for
not.
community works funds, but I am looking
Thank you.
into it. But I do know if that wasn't eligible for community works funds, it would be eligible for.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's. Sure you know that as well.
It's a great report and thank you very much.
Any other questions? You said you had a few.
That's it, move for seat.
Okay. Oh, Director Demare, go ahead.
Thank you for the report. It's timely. I've just one question on the PILT funding for the hazard assessments for the Delton Lake wildfire. They were $9,229.76 stuff. Did that go back into PILT?
It did. There was a resolution passed last year that said any unspent funding as of December 31st, 2025 would be reallocated. So those were put back into Area 8 PILT.
Thank you.
Okay. You want to second the motion, Director Demare? Okay, and all in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, 42, pushing fine. So Board Director Roundtable updates. Director Birch Jones, can you tell us why the Fraser Valley or the Fraser River?
Oh, you'd like a speech on the Fraser River right now. Now, how many minutes would you like to give me? Like 2? 3.
And it's a sincere question.
No, definitely.
I think you know a lot more about it than I do.
And I was thrilled by the question, because the reason that I supported the Watershed Security Coalition letter to the Premier was because a lot of our watersheds feed into the mighty Fraser River. And as far as I'm concerned, like the Fraser River is like, you know, we've got the St. Lawrence in the east and we have the Fraser, it is that important. It is like the lifeblood of British Columbia. It's our history. It was the early, you know, the fur trade, and it supports mining, it supports agriculture, it supports forestry. It's a living river. It's an incredible, like 1,000 miles of this, it's wild and it's fierce. Like it's taken a lot of human lives for sure. Certainly the First Nations gathered around it, like in the Bridge River where it comes into the Fraser, that was a massive trading area every season because what we had there was that dried salmon, swan, right? And that literally lasts for years. So that was really valuable. And so the interior people came in and the coastal people came in to trade, and it is wealth. And there's all 5 Pacific salmon come up the Fraser River and spawn, and it picks up, and just the way that it changes, like I'm buddies with Finn Donnelly and he's swam that river twice. And the actual industrial pollution, when we treat this river like a sewer, it's just appalling that we don't treat it so much better. But the industrial pollution, at least in the northern reaches of the river, is somewhat down. But the current real threats here are with the hotter weather, which we are definitely experiencing where there's no turning back on that. And also our increase in wasteful water consumption out our is that the levels are getting very low and the temperatures are getting high. It's approaching fatal for the salmon. And as far as I'm concerned, that's like the wealth of British Columbia. And so the Watershed Coalition is working on healthier watersheds and they feed into the bigger systems, our big system. And I mean, in Area B, it's a defining feature. It's really important to the entire province. But I think if we can do better in our respective watersheds, that will benefit the important one. And not that the Peace and the Columbia aren't also important in British Columbia, but the Fraser, I mean, it's an undammed living river. The salmon are bringing all the nutrients up. And then the Fraser River, I mean, it creates the Fraser Delta. I don't think you could sort of overstate how important it is. So yeah, I mean, I think we should support the Watershed Security Coalition. So I went ahead with Chair Jen's blessing and signed off on that letter. And I think there's about 40 local governments that did. I would love to see us doing more along the lines of watershed security and protection and, you know, it's certainly in Area B, the health of the Fraser River is critical.
Yeah. And unrelated, but still related, I think, is that the Howe Sound Community Forum is coming back in April. Which is unrelated, but very, very important to our regional district is the Howe Sound and the Acatslam First Nation, or the Acatslam biosphere. And so it's not in your area, but I think you would be really interested, and if you're available, I would love for you to come to the Howe
Yes,
Sound
I am
Forum.
very interested. I'm so impressed with what they're doing.
Yeah.
And, you know, in a sort of, I would love for us to be doing more of that kind of land management and assessment on a grand scale in areas A, B, and Lillooet. And I'm sort of hoping at some point with the intergovernmental group that we might get to some of that grand, you know, large scale land use planning with some real thought about things like water conservation. I mean, a wetland in area B, that's gold. And they're disappearing. Springs are disappearing, the small creeks are disappearing, and the levels are going down. We have no snowpack. Like, I consider it to be, you know, a current crisis. And so I just went ahead and signed the Watershed Security Coalition letter, and that's that.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
That's
all
great.
that. It's less than 3 minutes.
With that, will someone please move to receive the transfer over? Was it by Director Stoner, seconded by Director Richmond? All in favor, any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much.
You.
And we've dealt with 11.1. We can do 11.2, a request for funding from the District of Lillooet for the rec center pool operations. Director Birch Jones doesn't have any interest at all. So I'll ask Director Hopful if you have any questions.
I do not. Thank you for the donation.
Any other questions? No, would someone
I would
like
like to move $24,000 from electoral area B, northern area payment and move taxes, reserve funds towards the Lillooet Rec Center pool.
seconded by Director Hoppel. All in favor, any opposed, motion carries. Okay, an invitation for comment from Metro Vancouver on the consultation on proposed Metro 2050 amendment options in response to south of the Fraser Mayor's request. Record planning. Busy day for you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Claire Dewar, Director of Planning Development Services. I would recommend that the board do provide, prior to providing comment, that Metro Vancouver and SLRD staff meet to understand the nature of these amendments. They feel quite substantive, and it would be helpful to understand where Metro Vancouver staff are at.
So the motion would be to support, to direct staff to do that engagement and then come back to us prior to us writing a letter of comment.
Yes, and noting that it's a March 20th deadline, so we do have.
So we'd have to have it done by February. Yeah, moved by Director Richmond, seconded by Director Birch Jones. Any further comments? Go ahead.
I'm pleased with this path. When looking at it, it appeared that they're maybe moving into ALC or, you know, sprawling out, and I wanted to maybe offer at least some general, like, please stay away from that if that's what you're doing, but knowing that we're actually gonna have some discussions and so on, that's even a step better, I think, so.
Great. Any other comment? I don't see any. I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Claire. Now there's, I've had a few emails and we've received a specific letter of request for support from Jennifer Smack in the Paradise Valley Road. Who flooding and sorry, flooding. Yes. And we've been told a few times that we do not. Oh, hi. Tell us again.
So this SLRD has a policy for maintenance on this 1 kilometer section of road, which is a private BC Hydro owned road. BC Hydro does pretty much no maintenance because they don't need to. They use the road as they need, and they have stated that they have not given legal access to any of the leaseholders on that road. At the time of these pictures, there was an atmospheric river and there was flooding pretty much all through the corridor. I think in 2021, there was similar flooding levels, and we were in an EOC, and expenditure authorization form was submitted to Emergency Management BC to bring the road up, and that was for $170,000. It was denied because it's a private road and because it was not life safety issues. Ministry of Transportation has commented on this road, and they are not considering taking ownership of this road. If they were to, the road would have to be brought up to an acceptable maintenance standard, which would be in hundreds of thousands of dollars put into it. And the leaseholders did want to mention that they had said that they could take over maintenance of it themselves, but they would gate the road and block access to the other users of Sea Sky Trail. There's fisheries, fish hatchery, there's kayakers, hikers. So that's not ideal, obviously, but BC Hydro has also said that it would have to be a government entity, that if they were to sell the road, it would have to be a government entity. So to bring that road up to stop the flooding when there is atmospheric rivers would probably be upwards of $200,000. And the one other piece that the leaseholders mentioned is that for them to be able to buy, switch their properties to freehold, they have to have legal access, which they currently don't have.
Right, their water access. Which is very unfortunate.
And we did, I believe about 2 years ago now, Director Rainbow requested $10,000 to put into that Misty Lane intersection of gravel. So we did put roughly $10,000 worth of gravel, which did a little bit of work, but not enough to change what's happening there.
So we're at a rock and a hard place. Right.
So am I to understand though that the sort of the threat, and maybe that's a mischaracterization of the leaseholders buying the road and putting up a gate isn't really viable because BC Hydro would not sell to them, would only sell to a government entity, and so we don't have sort of concerns about maintaining access to Sea to Sky Trail and all those things, or have I got a piece of that wrong?
I think if that was what we went back and said, you can work with BC Hydro and to take over the road, I think we would just ask for them to maintain access around the gate for bikers and hikers. But there is a parking lot at the end of that road as well. So people parking before the bridge would cause issues potentially.
What would you like to do?
I'm curious if there's a hybrid model at all where the leaseholders, because they need to have access to get into their properties if they want to be able to buy, and that's a whole other issue that we've talked about, I believe, here. But if there's a way to address some of the ownership of it, I'm just wondering if there's a way to get some funding from the people, the property owners, but obviously not all of that funding because it is public access for a lot of either the lake that's there, the Sea to Sky Trail, beautiful. So I don't know. Not sure.
Not public access though, it's a private road.
Private road, but it'd be the interest to keep that open for people.
That's what Tony said a number of times.
Yeah, I think, and so I don't know if there's a way where you're getting some funding from the people who are living there and trying to work with them. I have no way.
We do have a service establishment for that, so we requisition about $15,000 a year for that, which is a couple plows and a couple grains a year.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, we do look at if we have some money to put a bit more gravel down to cover some potholes and things, but not to the extent of hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Just, if I remember correctly, this is the Misty Lane piece is the part that that this body, it has responsibility for maintaining, not the actual road. This piece that is BC Hydro. And that Misty Lane is the only piece of road that we have that responsibility for in the entire how many square kilometers of the regional district, is that correct?
Our maintenance policy covers that whole kilometer road.
Well, it does, even though we don't have actual right to the road itself. Interesting, but on the matter of like, how many roads do we address in this way?
This is it. It's similar to, the spot about it earlier.
We might have a pedestrian bridge soon, so that would be good too.
Okay. Yeah,
And so for clarity, the 200,000 rough estimate, that's a one time or that's an annual?
That would be one time to bring the rate up.
I'd also be curious about more information, because there are flooding events that happen in Squamish Valley where you just know you're not gonna be able to pass. You stock up on your food and you know the river's gonna rise and then it comes back down eventually. So are these flooding situations, is it because of the atmospheric river, is it happening, you know, for more than a day, a year? That's sort of kind of, I feel like this is, you know, a moment in time in a pretty epic rainstorm that we had in November. So that water level is high. And does that justify needing to raise a road that high for 200,000 for a one-day event? Or that's kind of the questions I have.
Yeah, and this event was January 12th, which if you go to the Facebook group, See the Sky, road conditions or whatever, there was flooding all over. And I mean, that industrial park, there was tons of water. So I think it is those significant events.
Yeah.
Where it's might not be passable.
Yeah.
And then, yeah.
I thought that is the golden question of our day, is like, how much do we want to continue to put into building up diking around neighborhoods and building up roads to meet these 1 in 1,000-year events that are now happening every 5 years.
Yeah.
And it's not funny. It's not funny.
Yeah.
So I mean, we can ask staff to come back with a report. I think we've had reports in the past about us taking over the bridge and the road, and, you know, is there a desire amongst this board and our budget? Or
Well, it's also a double-sided sword with that road, because if it gets improvement, it'll actually get busier
Yeah.
down in that area too. Cause it's bumpy, like I think last time I went was about 3 years ago and it was in pretty rough shape. But if you pave it, they will come and then it's busier and then the residents complaining about more traffic. So bringing it back to this, I'm not actually sure what our motion would be.
they're not really at, like, I think it says, add this to the next board meeting for discussion. What are we willing to do? I think at the moment we can receive it and refer it to a future budget discussion.
Yeah.
If that's suitable, go ahead.
We have advocated to the province consistently and yearly, and there is no interest in participating. So the budget discussion would be taxation or funding to maintain and upgrade a road that isn't ours.
Right. So
I don't-
it's really just receiving the correspondence now. Go ahead.
I wonder if communicating like what are that, like this group has advocated for, and the decision lies, the crux of this lies with the province in my opinion, and because I think that, you know, if we just receive, we don't reply, there's opportunities to show the work that's underway and to highlight what the actual problem is, and the problem isn't a will of this group to push to improve the situation. The problems are very specific, and we've asked for the folks that can affect that to participate, and they've declined, and we'll continue to keep, I think, beating that drum because this, you know, the problem persists. So I think like to remove receipt and
Respond.
and have provide a response that outlines, you know, the work made on resolving this issue.
Okay, can we do that? We have to do that. Can I get a motion? Oh, sorry, I do have Sal with a question or a comment.
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment. You know, if the road gets raised up, where's all that water gonna go? And, you know, is there an opportunity? I remember we went there on that tour, and if I remember right, Misty Lane was pretty close to where that is. And would that water just go down Misty Lane Road? And I don't know if there's ever been a little study done on that to see, you know, what it would cost to raise it. And if you did raise it, how much does it got to get raised, and where would that extra water go? I don't know what that would cost as far as a study goes, but you know, maybe that would help determine next steps for anybody, whether
I
BC
think that
Hydro, SLRD, or the property owners.
Yeah, the property owners need to talk to the province.
Yeah, the estimate that was received in 2021 during the EOC was included raising the road and providing some sort of ditching. So it kind of would move out of the way, but yeah, I mean, it would sure need a full drainage study.
Yeah. Okay, so the motion is to receive the letter and respond back with work that has the sort of outlay of the advocacy that has been done so far and pointing them to the direction of their MLA in the province. Moved by Director DeJong, seconded by Director Burford. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion carries. It's 4:02. I'm going to recess this meeting. We will reconvene this meeting tomorrow after committee of the whole. Have a good evening.